Back to your village.
Oh yes, let's recreate our age-old recipes.
But it's not just about food, you know. We're celebrating culture, connecting with family, and making memories that last a lifetime.
This March, let's come together and discover the flavors that make us who we are. The date is 29th and 30th of March 2025. The venue, Accra Metropolitan Assembly, and the time is 10 a.m. through till 6 p.m. each day.
The Back to Your Village Food Festival 2025, where food, fun, and tradition meet. See you there.
Interested vendors should call 0558-973-973 or 0205-973-973 to register. The Back to Your Village Food Festival 2025 is powered by Channel 1 TV with support from 97.3 City FM and is proudly sponsored by Gino, Goa Natural Cocoa Fruit Juice, and Pan African Savings and Loans.
Where politics meets power, where the tough questions are asked, welcome to Face to Face. Every Tuesday at 9 p.m., join Umaru Sanda Amadou as he takes you face to face with the key players shaping the future of our nation.
I lost over $10 million at the trade fair.
You had a fight with the management of trade fair?
I don't have a fight with them. I just deplore the way they went about what they did.
Let's talk about the chief prosecutor of the state at the time that you were being prosecuted, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, the Attorney General.
Yes. I think he was directed to jail us.
By who?
By the system.
Boko has been a failure for your government, though.
Can't be a failure.
You have not solved it.
No, you are not praising them, the previous government for solving Yende, which was even a more difficult case.
It's quite obvious that from these votes, the people felt that let's just let you go.
So they were disappointed
in us.
You are essentially the worst government in the Fourth Republic.
I don't know how you are doing that. If you based on the indicators.
Yes, based on the number of people who refuse to come and vote for you.
If that is your analysis, then why not?
No filter, no boundaries, just the truth behind the headlines. Deep, bold, and unflinching. Face to Face with Umaru Sanda Amadou airs on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. only on Channel 1 TV, where politics gets real.
It's time for the Swesco 66th Anniversary Celebrations and Alumni Homecoming. The dates, Friday 21st of March 2025 through till Sunday the 23rd of March 2025. Now on Friday at 10 a.m. at the school complex, How I Got There. At 1:30 p.m. at the forecourt of the school complex, Alumni Interhouses Gary Soakings Experience. At 6 p.m. on campus, Candlelight Procession. At 8 p.m. at the school complex, Alumni Roll Call and Welcomes Jam with the Kwampa Band. On Saturday at 8 a.m. at the Esther Hansen Grounds, Speech and Prize Giving Ceremony. At 1 p.m. the commissioning of the new Masters Flats. At 1:45 p.m. at the school complex, Alumni All-Year Groups Lunch. At 7 p.m. at the school complex, Alumni Dance Party with Inchin Chin Band. Then on Sunday at 9 a.m., Thanksgiving service at the Esther Hansen Grounds. It's the 66th anniversary celebrations and alumni homecoming of Swesco. Semper Cum Optimus. Always with the best.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to The Big Issue. The Big Issue is your Saturday morning news and current affairs analysis program. It's a place where there is incisive analysis and the conversation is often very riveting. This week has been a very important one for the nation Ghana and indeed for the John Mahama administration. The administration's first budget was read this week, and there's been quite a number of reactions, mixed reactions, I must say, in respect of the budget. While one side of the aisle thinks it's the best thing that has happened to this country since sliced bread, the other side thinks that the budget has been dishonest and the budget has been based on flawed assumptions. What is your own verdict on this budget? We'll look at it in terms of the taxes abolished, because that was promised many months ago that some taxes will be abolished: betting tax, the emission levy, COVID levy, e-levy, amongst other things. But also, we know we are in some crisis. The debt situation of our country is not very good. We are in an IMF program. The IMF has a number of things it wants us to do. And we say that we need more money. But if we need more money, why do we abolish taxes? We look at the revenue handles or the revenue measures that the government has in the budget and see whether these can plug the holes created by the taxes that have been abolished. Also, how does this budget align with the NDC's own promise or the manifesto with which they won the election? They promised a number of things. The Women's Development Bank, the big push, quite a number of promises they made. How does this budget align with that? Does this budget give hope to the voters who went to the polls to vote because they were convinced by the NDC's message? This and many other things in the budget we will consider. There's been quite some controversy around some of the figures, the debt situation, the primary balance on commitment basis and all of that. The minority says that the figures that the Finance Minister, Dr. Atuforsin, used were not proper, and a whole lot of things. How about social protection? Did this budget make enough room to socially protect people? We'll delve into all of that today with our guests. Also, the second part of the show, we'll look at the issue of the IGP. A new IGP has been installed. Dr. George Kufuor is no more Ghana's IGP. Christian Teteyohunu is a new kid on the block. He was sworn in yesterday. We'll look at the reactions. What does he bring to the table? What legacy did Dampari leave? Where does Yohunu take it up from? I mean, issues about police welfare, etc., have come up greatly. But people also think that Dampari is positioning the police in a way that gives them more respect now, etc., etc. Let me know what you think. So generally, this will be what will be engaging our attention for the next 3 hours or so. Again, my name is Selorm Adonoo. The show, as always, is live and interactive. You can join us via the WhatsApp line 020-444-7033 or 0549-986-996. We are live on 97.3 City FM, also live on our socials, and of course on Channel 1 television. We are happy to be coming your way this morning. We'll take a short break. We'll come back soon. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is The Big Issue. We are live on 97.3 City FM. My name is Selorm Adonoo. We're also live on our socials. We'll be happy to hear from you. We are looking at two main issues today. The first one is the budget statement that was read earlier in the week by Finance Minister Dr. Atuforsin. A number of things he did. He abolished some taxes, e-levy, COVID levy, betting tax, and all of those were abolished, consistent with the promise they made to the people prior to the 2024 elections. A few more will be done in consultation with the IMF, he says. Also, we'll look at Ghana's debt position, whether the budget really reflected what's on the ground, whether the budget aligns with the promises that the NDC made to the electorate, and a few other issues that have come up. The minority says that the budget more or less is dishonest. It was based on flawed assumptions, amongst many other things. We'll hear them as well whilst they advance their position. The second part of the show, we'll look at the matter of the IGP. George Akufu-Dampare has been replaced by Christian Tete-Yehunu. Tete-Yehunu was sworn in yesterday as the new IGP. We'll see what he brings to the table. Those who know him, what do they have to say about him? What will be his priorities? What will engage his attention the most? Of course, issues of public safety, etc., have come up greatly. What is the strategy around that? We'll speak to those who know him and understand his work ethic. So this is our program for today. But just to provide you some updates, government has announced the elimination of the One District, One Factory policy, the Ghana Cares and New Start programs initiated by the Akufo-Addo government as part of efforts to cut wasteful expenditure. This was revealed by the Finance Minister, Dr. Kesel Atuforsen, in the presentation of the 2025 budget. The following report by Channel 1 News' Ni Ayukwe has more.
The Finance Minister, Dr. Kesel Atuforsen, in presenting the 2025 budget of the John Dramani Mahama administration, revealed plans to cut down on wasteful expenditure by eliminating the One District, One Factory policy, the Ghana Cares and New Start programs initiated by the Akufo-Addo administration.
Right, Honorable Speaker, we will cut waste, and we will cut it very deep. Mr. Speaker, the New Start, One District, One Factory. Mr. Speaker, we will reassign the function development authorities, such as Coastal Development Authority, the Northern Development Authority, the Middle Belt Development Authority, to the district assemblies.
He also announced the abolishment of the electronic transfer levy, the betting tax and emissions levy as part of government's revenue measures.
We will abolish the 10% withholding tax on betting. We will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy of 1%. We will abolish the emission levy, otherwise as in Wusie tax. We will abolish the VAT on motor vehicle insurance policy. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 1.5% withholding tax on unprocessed gold by small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, to address the concerns from well-meaning Ghanaians on how we are going to close the revenue shortfalls as a result of the removal of the selected taxes, the answer is that we have stopped the bleeding. We are proposing to increase the growth and sustainability levy from 1% on gross production of mining companies to 3% to enable the nation to have its fair share of the windfall. Head of the IMF Technical Assistance Mission, I will inaugurate a VAT reform task force to hold broad consultation with key stakeholders for their input. So, Speaker, the parameters for VAT reform will be to complete, is for them to complete this year. The Speaker, the parameters will include the following. 1, abolishing the COVID levy.
Dr. Kesel Atuforsen also announced some allocations to key policy initiatives and interventions of the government.
We will provide a cedi equivalent of $279 million as a revolving for the Ghana Gold Board to be able to purchase, export at least 3 tons of gold per week from small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis. Big push project. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis for the Big Push program. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 499.8 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for the non-academic fee policy for all first-year students in public sector institutions under the No Fee Stress initiative. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated an amount of 292.4 million Ghana cedis to commence the distribution of free sanitary pads to female students in primary and secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated again an amount of 242.5 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of Akosombo Dam spillage. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 200 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of tidal wave disaster that recently displaced residents in certain parts of Cape South constituency. This year, the budget for free senior secondary school education program is 3.5 billion Ghana cedis. By uncapping the GET fund, we will be making available an additional 4.1 billion Ghana cedis specifically for financing free secondary education programs and other related expenditures.
The Finance Minister also estimated the government's total appropriation for the year 2025 at 290 billion Ghana cedis.
Mr. Speaker, total expenditure on commitment basis for 2025 has been programmed at 269.1 billion, representing 20.7% of GDP, down from 279.2 billion, which is 26% of GDP in the year 2024. Primary expenditure on commitment basis is projected at 204.7 billion Ghana cedis, representing 15.8% of GDP, which is a significant decline from 232.4 billion, representing 21.7% of GDP in the year 2024. Speaker, based on the resource allocation from 2025 fiscal year, the total appropriations the year ending 31st December 2025 is 90,971,212,435 billion Ghana cedis.
Whereas the Minority Caucus deems the presentation as an Azan budget, the majority believes that the government is delivering on its promises.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear that all the jobs they promised the youth of this country was merely an Azan promise. Mr. Speaker, there is no inspiration from this budget. There is no hope in this budget. The repetition of the social intervention programs.
This clearly is a budget of a government and a party that keeps its promises. Almost every promise that was made by John Dramani Mahama is being fulfilled in less than 120 days. This budget is a budget for Makola women. This budget is a budget for assemblymen. This budget is a budget for girls.
All right, so that's Atufosin, concluding that report by my colleague Ni Ayi Kwe Okan. So that's the budget. The budget is upon us. John Mahama's first budget in his comeback term. A number of people have said it's one of the best. Others have said, well, it couldn't have been anything less than it was. Others have said it was disastrous. I don't know where you stand. I'll be happy to hear from you. This morning, my guests are the Honorable Mona Korte, former Deputy Finance Minister. Joe Jackson, CEO of Delex Finance, Richard Ahiagba, Director of Communications of the MPP, Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa, and then Professor William Brafo in Sedu, Head of Department, Data Science and Economic Policy, University of Cape Coast. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program. Let me start off with you, Joe Jackson. I mean, you have been playing in this role, in this space for quite a long time. You've seen quite a number of budgets, and as we entered into the crisis post-COVID or even before COVID, we've seen a number of budgets as well. What is your general assessment or impression about this budget being out to force since very first?
Well, good morning, and good morning to everyone and to my colleagues. Listen, this budget was going to be tough. Whatever happens, it was going to be a difficult and tough budget. It was going to be difficult simply because we're coming out of a crisis. Our debts are swallowing us. Our CD has taken a dive. Inflation went. So whatever happened, it was going to be a really difficult budget. The best budget under these circumstances would be a high wire balancing act. It will be tough, to say the least, because you have to take some tough decisions. And also there were lots of expectations coming from the manifesto and other promises that had been made. So given all that, given where we are with the economy, given where we are in the IMF program, given where we are as a nation, I think this was a decent budget. This was a good enough budget. Have they taken some really big bets? Listen, there's some huge bets that have been taken.
Like what?
Of course, the first bet that is taken is that our revenues would, what do you call it? Our revenues will meet up with the level expected, right? And there are some interesting things that have been done, for example, with the tax refund regime. So there's been some huge bets. There's a huge bet that there can be the optimism and that we are seeing in the nation now will translate into good things. But those are bets. In the external shock, we are down. If the CD takes a dive, we are in trouble. If we can't revive the cocoa sector, we're in trouble. If the gold, which has held us up, doesn't hold up, we're in trouble. But listen, it's still. So what did we think they would do? I think that the Honorable Minister of Finance is the man of the moment. He stepped up to the plate. He's taking some big bets. And if they execute well, we'll all be happier as a nation. So it's a decent budget. I don't think you can knock it on any of the things, because also you can only look at this budget in the context of what was the situation in the economy at the end of December. Right? Look at all his recounting of our energy sector debt, of our including the ECG debt, of the cocoa board debt, of the targets we missed, of the spending that took place in the last half of the year. No, it's decent enough.
I see. I see. So that's first impression. Let me speak to the Honorable Mona Korte. Good morning. Welcome to the program. What did you set out to achieve with this budget? Yes, I'm just asking, what did you set out to do with this budget? You may want to unmute.
Yeah, anything that you said. So if you could repeat your question. I missed most of what Joe said and what you said. But greetings to your viewers.
Very well. Thanks so much for joining and welcome again. So the question is, I mean, this is the first budget of your administration, at least the second coming of John. This is the first budget. A lot of promises were made prior to the election, on the back of which hopefully, or I think you won the election. As a first budget, what did you seek to achieve in the context of the kind of economic situation we also find ourselves in? What did you set out to achieve with this budget?
Yeah, thank you very much. So, as we all know in this country, many of the citizens were apprehensive about the way the economy was going. There was a lot of talk about the direction of the economy pre-election and even post-election, because again, people didn't have clarity. Citizens and investors into Ghana didn't have clarity as to where the economy was going and even how issues would be resolved. I mean, we were coming out of a debt crisis. We could not sustain our debt servicing and all that, and a litany of issues that I wouldn't want to go back into. Therefore, a lot of people were looking for clarification and some sense of how this would be resolved. And that is exactly what this budget sought to do. So basically, the Minister of Finance came out to clearly show Ghanaians the action plan. Remember, we kept saying that the NDC manifesto was not a list of promises, but more of an action plan. So I'm sure that a lot of people have seen the synergy between the manifesto and the budget that has come out now.
I see.
So discussions with the IMF, fortunately, through the domestic debt restructuring program, that has been contained to a large extent. We now have to deal with the external debt. But that is a smaller proportion of everything. So there is now some clarity. And this budget is showing the map for the next year on how we are going to achieve macroeconomic stability for the nation and how we are going to get the economy back on track while still making sure that we take care of the vulnerable in our society. So you would notice that there's emphasis on revenue rationalization and exactly how that is going to be done, where we are going to find money from, how we are going to improve compliance, and then more importantly, the spending-led fiscal adjustments. So it's going to be emphasis on expenditure, cutting expenditure. And I'm sure most people who listen to the budget in Parliament heard the minister emphasizing we are going to cut expenditure. That has already begun, and that is going to be a major part of this year as well. Now, as I said, it will not be to the detriment of most people, because we'll make sure that the socially vulnerable are taken care of. We've also given a lot of relief in the area of revenue, so most people will enjoy that. The areas where expenditure will be cut will be mainly in the areas of waste. So regular citizens will not feel that, private sector will not feel that. Instead, we are going to improve the areas that will support private sector and also improve the lives of regular citizens. That's what you're already seeing, bill rates coming down. That again will hopefully, fingers crossed, impact inflation. And with the economic transformation agenda, especially in the area of agriculture, we should be able to improve food security and improve our currency depreciation rate. Either we are stabilizing or we are depreciating at a very, very small rate, because we all know that in 1 year, you cannot stop Ghanaians from still enjoying their imported goods and services. But the aim is to at least stabilize or reduce the rate of stabilization significantly. So basically, it's macro stabilization of the economy, whilst making sure that the citizens do not feel too much of a pinch.
Very well, great. Richard, my good friend, welcome to the program. It's been a while. Yes, so you read the budget. I see you making marks on all over the document you have before you. What's your general impression before we get into it proper?
Good morning to your good self, your viewers. I think I have listeners on radio and my senior brother here. It's a very fine studio. It's my first time.
Oh,
in a
I
long
see.
time, yes.
Yeah.
I think that it's a difficulty the finance minister has to go through in trying to craft a budget. Because generally we have a difficult global economy. And so it's a tough sell to be able to figure out a way, especially on the back of what promises they made. And so the expectation was high, and so he did what he has to do. But I see this budget as one that, if you look at it very closely, will fall short of expectation, especially this is in the context of the election, what brought them to office. It falls short of expectation.
Why do you say so?
Well, we'll get into that. My good sister talked about they're giving people reliefs and they will enjoy it. I'd like for her to expand on that front because I don't see much of any relief for Ghanaians. Rather, there's going to be a pinch that Ghanaians are going to take in terms of concerns about cost of living. You know, the election was fought really on that front. Where the president told us that it was about the economy, in quotes, stupid, right? And so you expected from this budget some indication that is going to drive some agenda to mitigate a rising cost of living for Ghanaians. But you don't see that in there if you look closely. If anything at all, there are indications that cost of living will go up. Also, it falls short of expectation for me because I don't see how the expectation of job creation, which is a key campaign promise of the NDC, the Great Transformation Agenda, I don't see that featured in the budget. If anything at all, there's going to be a net freeze, at least on the government side. And with a heavy emphasis on consolidation, expenditure-led consolidation, you're looking at some element of contraction in the economy based on that, expenditure, given that such expenditure would be in the productive sector or be such that those, if it's even most of the expenditure cut about 10 billion, focusing on consumption, if assuming those consumption or consumables produced here in the country is going to, affect growth in that area, assuming that, those money should have gone there to drive demand to improve local production. And also some of the tax incentive, the extension of the special import levy is going to affect domestic industry production because the cost of living is still going to go up. Some of the inputs they import, and those will be affected. So really, you have not stimulated job creation from that angle. So for me, there's a lot in this budget that leaves me wondering if really what the NDC promised they can do. But my analysis going forward of the budget will focus more on two things, because if we see what the finance minister did, and this was orchestrated. You saw the president during the negotiation with organized labor sent a signal that, the economy has been criminally mismanaged or mishandled, setting the tone also in SONA. And then the finance minister was looking for an avenue to crystallize that perception. And so if you see in the budget, some of the maneuvers he did calls a lot of the data he put out into question. And it became a thing of this is how we're supposed to calculate primary balance, overall fiscal deficit. And it's as if, a game is being played. We'll discuss that. But I would like for us to look at the budget in twofold. The NDC is happy in saying that what the economy they have inherited is terrible. The economy is bad, unprecedented, and what that. We'll talk about that and talk about their own history of managing the economy, because that must be brought front and center. Because if you are the one throwing stones or you're the one seeking equity, you must come with clean hands. And so the way they manage the economy compared to what they are inheriting now, put that side by side and say that this is worse or that is worse. We can do that. And then that is important because Selorm, it determines their capacity to manage the worst economy they say they have inherited going forward. Because in this budget, I don't see how they are going to drive any growth. And you have seen that already. The macro indicators or the macro targets they have put out there is actually dampening expectation. They're saying that they're going to grow somewhere around 4.4, right? 4.4 for 2025. When 2024, you had a 5.7 growth. What is informing that? Is it though they are setting expectation low so they can exceed it, or what is the basis of that? And then the other part of the analysis which you must look at is, so first of all, the discussion of what they have inherited. We'll finish that conversation and look also, then going forward, what have they put in this budget to give us Ghanaians indication that they are going to build or going to improve what they say is bad that they have inherited. So I think the conversation should be looked into those two.
That's clear. So Jackson, so let's get into it now. I mean, very difficult situation, and you agree that it's a high bet in many respects. How does he navigate, or the government, Adonoo Forson, how does he navigate this? A number of promises, have been made. Taxes have been, abolished or scrapped. How does he navigate this difficult situation? What should be his guiding principle in seeking to bring relief or the promised relief to Ghanaians with this budget, given all the circumstances we have?
Well, my first comment is that when you are in a hole, the first thing you do is to stop digging. And when you are in a crisis, right, there's some adjustment you have to make in literally cutting your coat according to your size. I heard my brother Ayagba here, and the crux of the issue is this. As far back as January of last year, there was an indication put out that the economy had been turned around. A lot of us disagreed. That you remember we had debates.
Yes, the economy had turned the corner.
But the economy had turned the corner, and the economy, had not turned the corner. It had not turned the corner. So when we look at a situation where the numbers, right, and unless you can conclusively challenge those numbers, right, and then you've seen the World Bank document that talks about how the growth that we saw was fueled by even more debt, right? Are we surprised at the debt, how much money we owe? If you ask me, let's talk first about the debt, right? The first thing is that if you look at the situation where we cannot borrow from the
Eurobond, the international market,
which may not necessarily be a bad thing. Then what did we have to do? First of all, make sure that the deficit was within reason. So you see that in the primary, at the end of year, primary balance is set at 1.5. Now it's important to explain the primary balance, which is saying from all the money that the government is expecting to get and what it's expecting to spend without paying for debt servicing, paying the interest that is due, it should make some surplus. In this case, they projected a surplus of about 20 billion, right? We will still borrow. We will still service our debt. So there's a net deficit. But at least we are heading in the right direction. Now, because we still have to borrow, you would notice that one of the things he talked about aggressively was the fact that they are driving down the cost of borrowing. They're driving down the cost of borrowing. Because you see, what hit us hardest in this crisis was not necessarily the debt to GDP. Because we could argue that some countries have debt to GDP rates
very high.
it was the ratio of debt service to our revenue.
Ratio of debt service to our revenue.
Yes. How much we paid, we're expected to pay in interest costs. And how much of it. And at one point, it was as high as 50% of our revenue. So one of the high bets he's done, right, is to drive down the cost of borrowing. And he's driven it down in some pretty aggressive way. If you look at the Treasury markets from yesterday, I mean, 91-day T-bills have dropped as low as in the region of 15 plus percent, 182, 16 plus percent, and then 365, 18 in the region of 18%. That's a dramatic drop from the highs of 25%, 26%, 27% that was inherited. So let's all.
Let's stay on that for. I know you've been big on Treasury bills, etc. But driving that down, the counter argument is that when you drive that down, the market no more has confidence in the Treasury market. So the market will go looking for other things to put their money into. So for example, they'll go buy dollars, and that puts pressure on the domestic currency, and that exacerbates your interest, your exchange rate woes. How about that? Because if the exchange rate is terrible, there's a way it comes back to bite us because everything else.
Some of your debt is even denominated in dollars.
Exactly. So what's the point really in driving down the Treasury
But
rate?
let's look at how the rates have been driven down. The rates have been driven down by going to the market and only taking what you need. So, as against the previous regime, where you go to the market and if you went to the market looking for 5 billion and there was 8 billion on the table, you scooped all the 8 billion at whatever cost. This time, he's driven down the market. Because remember that what he needs is put out before we go to the market. And he's only taking what he needs. So if in that case, how can we complain that what is our problem? That he should take more than he needs to keep rates high? Does that make sense? He's saying, before I go to the market, I need 5 billion. When I go to the market and I take 5 billion, the rates drop. That can't be a crime. Two, by signaling that we will reduce our debt service, we are putting ourselves in a better place, right, to service that debt. So shouldn't that drive confidence in the economy? So I'm not sure I can identify with all. The biggest argument is that there is a gap, an inflation gap, that inflation is still at 20-something percent. So if you buy T-bills, you're taking pain.
So that's negative. And so why will I go back? Why will I do that? Because inflation is high, TB rates are dropping.
Lower, yeah.
Normally you want to benchmark it against inflation.
Doesn't that tell you that truly maybe those who are buying rates truly believe that the interest the inflation rates will come down. Because if you didn't believe it, why would you do it? Remember that some of the bits, right, were as low as 12% on Friday. If somebody felt strongly that inflation was going to be at 23%, 24%, why would he put in there and say 12%? I'm just saying that let's look at the behavior of the market. The market is signaling something. The market is signaling that truly, at this point at least, they expect inflation to come down. At this point, the Minister of Finance is only taking as much as required.
I see.
We should be happy. Secondly, there's another thing. we are not going to get this out of this situation without some pain.
So there's more pain to come.
Every day is painful. So long as the inflation hasn't reached the levels at which we're expecting, it is painful. And we are taking pain from 2022 to date. But here's the thing. Somebody has to take the pain. If somebody is volunteering because we didn't put a gun to their heads to bid for the money, right? If somebody is prepared to take some pain in expectation of a reduced inflation rate ahead, what is our complaint? And you see, we shouldn't act as if we wish this economy ill. We shouldn't act as if when some things go right, we hate it. We may say there are risks. I'm the first to lift up my hand and say, this is a high risk maneuver. But we should appreciate what the risk is. We should appreciate what it is delivering. And we should thank God that at this moment, there's some relief in place.
Very well. All right, Franklin Kojo, welcome to the program. But Madam Monacote, the issue from the minority really is that you, in just 2 months, you borrowed a lot, 73 billion. And Gideon Wako, for example, says at this rate, we may end up borrowing in excess of 200 billion. When you compare it to what happened in 2017, the situation is way worse now. What's the strategy? Are we going to continue borrowing this much from the domestic market? You know, what's the strategy really? And what's your response to the concerns that you may succeed in driving down the Treasury bill rate, but it will have serious implications for the economy in other sectors, like the exchange rate, for example? What's the government strategy around that?
So, Selorm, thank you very much for that. Just before I come to the strategy, I just want to thank Mr. Joe Jackson for his response to the interest rates going down. And the question you asked him about, therefore, investors would want to put their monies into currency, foreign currency and so forth. Actually, there's a pent-up demand from the private sector for these funds. So we are going to see, most likely, we are going to see the commercial banks being able to on-lend to the private sector. So as we term it, there will be a crowding in of the private sector. In the past, we had a crowd out by government being in that space, whether it was the NDC government or the MPP government. There had always been government crowd out of that space. Now we'll see a private sector crowd into that space. And at those interest rates, those are attractive for them. Now, with respect to the debt strategy, of course, like Joe said, this time, there's only borrowing of what is needed. So we won't be taking that whole space. Yes, there's been a short-term increase because we are still involved in the domestic debt restructuring, and we still have to look at the foreign portion that has to be paid to the private investors who came in. Also, you know that there were some investors into the domestic debt. So in terms of USD to CD, that amount too has increased, and we have to sort all that debt servicing out. In the first few quarters of this year, at least 1 and 2, we are going to see a resetting. You're going to see perhaps the amount going up before it can even come down. So with respect to that pent-up demand from private sector for that, they will come in, and we will all, I'm saying we, government will only be in there for the short term, not medium to long term. We should see the private sector going in there and they borrowing from the domestic market. Whilst government works on the debt strategy to bring the debt to a sustainable level and to increase GDP so that those percentages can make sense in terms of sustainability and signal to the investor community and to the lending community that we are moving in the right direction. Debt servicing will take place as expected. The economy will grow on a sustainable basis, not on a rushed basis, but on a sustainable basis. The problems that we had in the past, even up to the immediate past, are not problems that are resolved in a matter of months. It will take a little bit of time. But the good news is that we are already being able to show the actions that are being taken place. So the debt management office is going to come out and show clearly the debt strategy going forward. You know, the budget is always multiple year, so we'll show that strategy going forward. And one of the main things is leveraging on the amount that was allocated for the $10 billion push. So as you noticed, $4 billion was put out there. The idea, most likely, I haven't spoken to the minister directly, will be to leverage on that $4 billion to attract investments and borrowings in order to start to put that infrastructure into place. Ghana's economy, the fundamental is flawed, as we all know. We've talked about this at length, and we need to make that change now. It's going to mean some pain to get that change done. But once that change is done and we have the infrastructure in place, we'll see governments come out of areas that private sector should be in, and we'll see private sector take up that role, take it strongly, and government will now be more in compliance and regulatory, making sure that private sector is not taking advantage of the nation, but rather contributing to grow the nation. So that will be the debt strategy, where we will be looking at resolving the issues now, and then going forward, find very out of the box ways of dealing with debt. The bilaterals may not be as strong. We are a lower middle income country. We don't qualify for certain grants and so forth. The multilateral situation will also be an issue. You know the issue already on the bilateral with the USAID portion going out. But that doesn't stop us from growing. The idea is that with import substitution, with the economic transformation agenda, especially in the area of agriculture, we should do well. We were lucky. We saw end 2024 where the extractive industry came in strong. Of course, prices had gone up for gold, but oil and gold came in strong in terms of production. And production is not only helped by price, but it's helped by cost of production. So utilities, people, the consumables that are bought in that space. And that is why I will say right now that I'm a little concerned about the growth and sustainability tax on the extractive industry going up. You know, I wish that wouldn't be the case. But in the context that right now our major source of funding will be from the tax refund account, and trying to navigate the space to release some money. And maybe that may be a measure that will come in, but not for long, because that industry sector is the sector that will help this nation to come out of its debt, because they bring in the foreign currency. Again, in the area of agriculture, we are looking to that also bring in the foreign currency. So I don't see us having a currency destabilization, and I don't see inflation going further up. If anything, with food security and with the good relations that we are enjoying with our neighboring countries, we should be able to bring food inflation down. And that will impact inflation considerably. So the strategy is in the right direction. It will take a bit of time, but the important thing, like Joe said, is let's all support what is good for it to happen for this nation, because driving us all into a ditch does not help. But I am happy to also mention that I think the last 2 quarters of last year showed some dedication from the previous government in making sure that they worked on the domestic debt restructuring specifically. And I think that kudos to them for that. Governance is a continuum. It's not one person's job.
I see Richard Ahagba smiling in his head.
That
I see Richard Ahagba smiling in his head.
That's fine. I mean, that's what Joe right. He said. We must say what is good.
Great. But you made a point about the
taking from there.
The 3% growth and sustainability levy. It's interesting because you said you wish it could have been better. And so
I wish we wouldn't increase it, but you know, there are times when you do have to tighten your belt. So it is.
I see. That's interesting. All right. Franklin is on. Franklin, welcome to the program. And we're just looking at the budget generally. I know you followed keenly. Did the budget meet your expectation?
Well, good morning to Honorable Kothe, and good morning to Joe, and good morning to I don't know the gentleman.
No, that's Richard Ahagba.
Oh, Richard. Oh, sorry.
You see, you are not recognizing your friend in opposition now.
No, I am. I'm just good to see you, Richard. Oh, sorry. Look, all I can say is that the budget more or less somehow paid homage to some of the promises that were made in the manifesto. For some time now, sometimes we normally do not see that synergy, right? And by the way, I thought was probably I thought was a bit clever, if not more clever, in making sure that the very low-hanging fruit that were promised in the manifesto that relate to livelihoods, the importance of livelihood, people's survival, and those things spoke to me as somebody who was honoring what he had intended, and in actual fact, what they wanted to do. So yes, there are no big, if you like, should I call them big calculations and minuses here and there, but essentially just paying fidelity to those little promises that people tend to think about. For me, was actually the biggest takeaway from this budget. If you promise that you're going to alleviate, the hardship in terms of paying tuition for the first year students, well, they honored it, right? If they said that they were going to, 51, provide some seed money for the Women's Development Bank. Well, there is a seed money, but of course they said they've set up a bank. We were not told how much they put in, but now they said they want to put some seed money. If you netted off that seed money, however small it is, against the reliefs that were mentioned, they were not big reliefs, but of course those tax reliefs, which were obviously characterized as nuisance taxes. It tells you that, look, somehow some people would have some disposable income against which, if let's say a woman wanted, a woman who sells wanted maybe 200 cedis on the bank, and now probably would not ask for 200, but probably will get about ask for maybe 100 because somehow some disposable income has come back to her. I mean, these are little things, but you see, if you combine all of it into a big, it creates a very big, I call it a savings for everybody. So for me, I thought that the first thing I wanted to say about the budget is that it paid homage to the things that they intended to do, and those things were quite political as well. I mean, look, the betting tax and all of that, people are happy that these things will be scrapped. Not that the NPP 2017 they did the same thing, right? They also did VSHS and did so. Somehow, if you honor your own promises, somehow people tend to gravitate. And I think the other thing I want to say is that I actually wondered how I thought was going to basically fill that gap that would have been created from the taxes that were repealed. Were going to be repealed. And when he mentioned the tax refund thing, I was sort of amazed. I said, well, where did that come from? Then it turns out that I have a family brother for salt, not blood related, at the customs. And he called me and said, look, Frankie, that's true. And that tax fund is actually a slush fund that certain politicians use to pay for, suspicious projects. And he mentioned Kelly, GBG, that's where they paid the money from. So you never know. I mentioned SML, that's where they paid the money from. And some suspicious judgment debt. And so maybe I told you, I realized I don't know. We'll use the money this week. So I'm saying this because it's not who, it doesn't because I said it, but a technical person actually told me, even before I mentioned that on I think on your network when you spoke with Bennett. So for me, I think these things matter to me. I mean, we can talk about deficits and all of that. Well, he didn't want to get bogged into those boxes where he needs to think too much, but he didn't want to spend so much, right? Maybe the other thing I always say is that, look, there are still challenges when it comes to the way, what's it again? Anyway, so there are still challenges as to how some of the big things they said they were going to do would be funded. I mean, I wasn't particularly keen. I was interested in knowing what would feed or go into the 13.17 billion Ghana cedi, what's it called, the big push. Some of the, allocation from the big push fund. I don't know what we're going to use that money for. I'm sure maybe the details will be found in the other aspects of the budget, but I thought I wanted to hear something more. And of course, the 24-hour thing too is really important, and I think they should get on with it, because you see, there are sectors already begging for things like this, and some of them are low-hanging fruits. The technology side of things, digitalization space. There's a lot that can be done in that space to enhance this policy. So, when you don't want to do too many things in the budget, and also try to, and then at the same time you appeal to the basic needs of people that have cried for certain taxes to be taken away, you probably have done your job. And that's what a political minded economist will do. And I think he read the politics well, and he did that. That's why everybody seems to be somehow happy with the budget. Not because there's too many wonderful things in the budget, not at all. I mean, I thought the allocation to agri, for instance, was woefully low. I mean, but who is talking about agri? People are talking e-levy. People are talking petty tax. But those were the things that we campaigned on, and to the extent that he's done it, and again, found money to fill that gap. It's interesting, really interesting.
I see. Great. Let me come to Richard. I know you had some points to raise initially, but the taxes were taken off. What do you make of I call it innovation, but the resort to the tax refund account to bridge that gap? I mean, that for many people was a masterstroke. What do you think about that?
I'm really trying to stay positive and to try and let's look in a direction that's okay. But then the NDC really didn't set a tone for that. They were disingenuous in most of the things. I think we have to talk about their misrepresentation of data and the matters to do with that. But you see, the thing about the tax refund account is actually very tricky. And I'm surprised how people see that to be a discovery of something. Right, that account has always been there. It's a sub-account linked to the consolidated account. So it's not as if we didn't know there was money there. There's money there. It's part of our overall revenue. Okay, so it just says that he's going to use it for A, B, C, D, rather than what it's being used for.
Let me provide some context to what exactly he said, and then you can continue. He said, Mr. Speaker, the tax refund account has been abused in recent years. A study of the use of the tax refunds in the last 8 years revealed that 29.11 billion Ghana cedis had accrued to the tax refund account, with only 12.5 billion representing 43% of the total accrued amount used for tax refund purposes. So the essence of what he's saying is that fund has always been there, money has always been there, but it's not been used for the real thing. So now we will take some more from there to fill the gap or the hole that might have been created by abolishing those taxes so people can have relief.
But that's not new money. It's like your own money.
Money properly ordered, not properly applied, or
it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Whatever they talked about, they pay SML from there, they paid this from there. What is an obligation government had to pay? If you have questions about SML, that's a separate matter. But that's a government liability that ought to be paid. So it's your money. This is assuming you have 3 accounts. And one you don't use, and then you are in a certain situation, you decide to use it. It's not a discovery. It's always been your money. So I don't see the ingenuity with that. But you see, the point is that you have lost revenue. You understand? You have lost revenue by virtue of removal of those taxes. So that's your problem. It is not finding what money you already have, which is there. Now, at the end of the day, at the end of the year, if that money is not spent, where does it go? You know, it's not money that is somebody's money. It's money belonging to the consolidated account. And you never know. These are refunds possibly that people would claim on it. What if people show up to claim on that money? You understand? You have reduced about 2% of it being applied to other things. So it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. What we need to really do is to find a way to close the gap. Yes, some of the things that really is going to help him close the gap is the COVID levy that is left in the budget. It's there. They didn't remove it.
Yes, it said,
and it's projected.
Next when the IMF and all of those come around, because they will need some help in recalibrating or dealing with it.
Selorm is not going to go. I mean, he's talking about the outcome of the IMF's review before they come. Why can he not predict this one? That you take it, and when they come, they will tell them that you have taken it. He's projected even to rake in more from the COVID levy than we got in 2024. It's estimated about some 3.8 billion to be gotten from the COVID levy. You understand? So that's really
the
what
3.8 billion, I think, is from the e-levy and the other taxes that will be scrapped.
Yes. So about the e-levy is bringing in about 2-point-something billion, and then 180 million from the betting tax. I'm saying that the COVID levy is projected in the 2025 budget to rake in some 3.8 billion. So that's really what is going to use to close the gap. And some of the sustainability levy that is increased from 1 to 3%. So about 2% increase there. So that's really what, if you just look at the e-levy projections, about 3.8 billion, that covers that. But the idea that he's discovered some, tax refund account, there's nothing ingenious about that. It's money that is there, we've always known it's there. It's used for other things. You say you want to use it for this thing. There's nothing. It doesn't add to your basket. It is within your basket already. We are looking at what will come into the basket as a result of what you have let out. And so there's nothing creative about that. But my point is that would they repeal the COVID-19 levy? Would they? Because they campaigned on that as well.
Yes.
They campaigned on that. Are they going to remove it? If they're not going to remove it, they should come in and tell us. And these theatrics about IMF and all of that won't wash. Because already he started giving indication of what the review will look like, which for me is most unfortunate. Okay? Most unfortunate. I'm surprised my senior brother didn't talk about it, because that signals to the market. If we're going to fail the review, which review people, or more or less the IMF backing of our economy, is an indication for the market that things will go right. And if in the midst of that, we have an indication from our own finance minister telling the whole world that no, we are not likely to pass the review, what is the implication of that? You understand? So if he is able to predict and signal this one, then you should also just remove the COVID levy, because he promised he was going to remove it. So for me, he's not done on that front. He's not. That's why I was telling you that we should look at this discussion in terms of, one, what economy they inherited, which for me is a pain point, because that's why you said, when you said, Madame Monacote said about what good things have been done, I was welcoming that idea, because really, truly, they are building on what they have inherited. And there's no way anybody would tell me that the economy they inherited, and I disagree with Uncle Joe about the idea that the economy did not turn the corner. The economy did turn the corner. You look at the numbers, and you can decide to say that today, GDP doesn't make sense to you anymore. Okay, you can decide today to say that, debt to GDP ratio doesn't make sense to you anymore. You can decide to say that gross international reserve doesn't make sense to you anymore. If that's what you're saying, then we'll just wait and see how you are going to apply those indicators tomorrow. But this economy they inherited is doing, or was doing, much better than the economy they left in 2017. Clear fact. There is no controversial fact about that.
So let's
point to
let's look at some of the
economy they inherited.
5.7 debt to GDP.
Yeah.
5.7 growth against 3.6 in 2016. Gross international reserves, 4 months cover. I think they left about 3 months.
6.2, 3.5.
Okay. Inflation, 23. They left around 16.
About 15.4.
All right. So that's.
But even that, yes, that's fine.
Interest rates around 29 now. They left around 26. Exchange rate, dollar, 15.6 thereabout now. they left about 4.2, you know, and a lot of those. So the economy in 2016, looking at these indicators and indicators which affect people day to day, appear better than in 2016. Maybe save the GDP growth.
Well, but that, what does that tell you? That tells you, and if you look at that,
and
if you
the
go
debt
down,
to GDP ratio, the debt to GDP ratio, they left around 73. We understand you're living around 61.3.
61.8, yeah.
But that's on a rebased economy. You know, we've seen...
not
on the back of a domestic debt
exchange. So there's been a lot of pain that people have had to endure. And if this is coming on the back of that, I'm not sure it's an achievement you have to be trumpeting too much, because the more you even trumpet it, the more you remind people of the pain they have to go through in the DDEP.
No. You see, it's not even about trumpeting achievements so we can pat ourselves on the back. It's about indicating rightly where you are building from. You understand? It's consequential that you're from a situation of relative advantage, okay, vis-a-vis what you left. This whole thing about now we're discounting GDP as a matter of, it's just that. It's just an indicator. It's very troubling for me. Look, the 2016 economy, 2017 economy was not a growing economy. It was a contracting economy.
How so?
You understand? That progressively from 2013, the economy was declining all the way through.
It was not growing faster.
That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at year-to-year growth, year-on-year growth.
So
it was
it may be
declining.
growing, but not growing as fast as you would want it.
It's a different way of saying the same thing.
So I'm contracting. Contracting means it's actually reducing.
That's what I'm saying. That if you do a comparison from one year to another, and it is growing less in this year than it grew last year.
It doesn't mean it contracted. It doesn't mean that it grew smaller.
I'm saying that you're doing your relative analysis of the year. You're doing a time series analysis. You take 2013, take 2014, 2015, 2016, and you're looking at the numbers. You're saying that what fiscal year performance you had in 2015, okay, is less than what you had in 2016. So you're in that term, your economy is contracting in looking at those numbers. So my view is that when you have that economy, you don't have momentum. The economy doesn't have momentum. And then somebody takes that economy and turns the economy around. It is different from when the economy is growing. In 2024, you have economy that is growing with momentum going into 2025. You build on that momentum. Okay, so you have some leverage. It's almost like a relay, like my sister said. It's a relay run that you're doing. So the person you are picking from has given you an advantage and a leg up to be able to run the race. And if you have somebody give you a baton with an advantage, and you run a race and lose, there's a probability we can say that you did not run well, not the person who handed you the baton. So it is consequential to indicate where we're starting from. And that's where I think that the NDC is actually prioritizing politics over sound economic management issues. You see, there is a reaction to what announcement he made. The budget, there was market reaction to it, where our bonds, our Euro bonds are underperforming. Okay, we're losing ground on that front. And so these are things that I feel that we should get past and then begin a conversation fresh to say that we are building our economy to focus on what they are doing. Okay, so for me, the issue of what they have inherited is key. We have addressed that. They can quibble about it, that is worse, is this, but that, but the numbers will speak for themselves. And the taxes they have removed, how he was going to replace it, we haven't seen the explanation he has given for me doesn't wash, but he's going to get it from the COVID levy, which he's not going to remove this year. He's going to keep it. There's no projection for it for 2026. It's 000. So I hope that he will remove it in 2026. But whichever way you look at it, maybe when the IMF consultation comes, then he will take as though IMF say I should leave it for 2026. But meanwhile, the taxes he has removed, he should have removed COVID-19 levy as well, because they promised they were going to remove it. He kept it because that's what is going to close the gap for him. But my view of how we move forward, and my sister talked about the great transformation agenda. There is nothing about it in the budget. Okay, the Great Transformation Agenda anchored by the 24-hour economy, there is zero allocation to it. There's nothing about it. So there is no growth transformation agenda, there's no grand transformation agenda, there is nothing that is going to happen. The indication is that they are going to bring what they call a policy framework for the 24-hour economy sometime. I tell you that it won't come. If it comes, where are they going to get the allocation?
There's a whole senior presidential advisor on 24-hour economy.
No, with all deference to him,
a very... And the indication is that he's working so hard to put this document
Well, he can work so hard. If he doesn't have money, what would that amount to? The point is that there's no allocation for it in the budget. If you compare this to, there are so many promises in the NDC manifesto that would equal to some of the ones that we gave when we're coming in. But pick one big one, okay? The 24-hour economy is one of them, okay? When they showed up, when we showed up in 2017, in the first year, we implemented a free SHS, which is comparable to their 24-hour economy, or even the Women's Bank. We implemented in the first year. It take their big ticket items, the big push. How much is the allocation to it? A little over...
About 13 billion?
Yeah, 13.8 billion Ghana cedis. But then you are talking about a price tag of $10 billion. What is that? That's even less than 1 billion. So at this rate, maybe
next year they will put in a lot more money.
That's right, but that's yet to be seen. But we can judge from today, correct? At this rate, how many years is it going to take them to even be able to implement?
But the 24-hour economy, yes, I understand. There's some allocation ought to have been made to that. But what's really the fulcrum of it? They say they will improve security. They will ensure. I mean,
which one?
The 24-hour economy. People have to work in the night.
Yeah.
Okay, so the agencies or the organizations.
Don't commit yourself. Don't commit yourself.
Judging, from what we have heard from them, and Madam Onakote will speak to that as well. I mean, the MDAs, okay, perhaps they will have to lead the way. In doing so, provide them with security, lights all over the place. But these are the things Energy Ministry and all those guys will be doing anyway. Yeah. So it's just a policy to drive it. Okay, so DVLA, instead of closing at 5, let's now not close. So you can close at 2. Let the next batch come in at 2:30. Let them close some around 8. Let the next batch come in at 8:30. Let them close at 6. So how much of an allocation will be required for that? Because the other things would have been done by other people who already have allocation.
But you see, if we talk about a grand transformation agenda, you're not talking about these obvious low-hanging fruit things. You're not talking about those. You are talking about real sector stimulus that will drive a certain productivity around the clock. So you're not just talking about, we do passport 24 hours. That's laughable.
But
you're not talking about DVLA opening 12 hours. That's convenience. That is not productive, intense, objective, trying to stimulate some economic growth. That's not what you're looking at. When you say that your fiscal policy will be anchored on a 24-hour economy, you are talking about big stuff. You are talking about driving some growth in the real sector. Which real sector? We don't see the plan. In fact, about top 5 of their initiatives on the promises they made, Jumera, the National Apprenticeship, the Women's Bank, the what's called the Agric for Economic Transformation.
AITA.
Okay.
All those 5 they've been provided for.
They provided for. But you see, the total estimate for that is about 2.1 billion Ghana cedis, which is less than the estimate they have given to the Office of Government Machinery.
We'll come to the Office
of
Government
Machinery. You are talking about this is how you are going to drive growth in the real sector. This is how you are going to create opportunity for young people in this country, and it is less than compensation.
We'll have a lot to
compensation for Office of Government Machinery.
Very well. Let me deal with Joe. Joe has to run. So.
No, but let me ask him a quick question. What's the answer? You know, I like that, and I think Madame Monacote tends to agree with you about how the rates are dropping. I agree with the shift to currency and all of that. But you see, the market is rational. Okay? Based on the point it's made, the market is rational. So you don't expect that long-term people will carry on this way when they are obviously losing money based on the differential. So just explain how that will make sense to a rational investor for me.
Listen,
and whilst at it, deal with...
I wanted to deal with one the market is rational. Nobody put a gun to somebody's head to place a bid at that rate, right? If the market is rational, then our assumption has been the market does not expect to make a loss in the
long run.
In the long run,
91 days is a long run.
But let me take one point here, just a quick fact check, because something actually struck me here. When you look at item 288 of the budget statement, it was quite clear. It said, Mr. Speaker, the parameters for the VAT reforms will include 1, abolishing the COVID-19 levy, 2, reversing the decoupling of GET Fund and NHIL from the VAT, 3, reducing the effective VAT rate for households. It goes on and on. The point I'm making is that the COVID-19 levy has been clearly stated in 288 as is part of the reforms they are advocating for. My understanding also was that those, because they had been written into the agreement with the IMF.
The e-levy also.
Yes.
They have also the e-levy. So it's not
yes, but the COVID-19 was bringing a lot more money than the e-levy.
2 billion. We got 2 billion from both in 2024. So
but the point is that platform. The VAT, it's a comprehensive thing. That whole VAT regime, you can't just. The e-levy was a single item. That VAT thing had to be renegotiated. The point I'm making is that you can't just say nothing is going to be done. The point I'm making is that somebody says this is what I'm going to do. You cannot say you won't do it or you cannot do it. All we can do is to say let's watch.
For 4 years, let's watch. If after 4 years, they
have a 4-year mandate.
Yeah, a 4-year mandate. And this is a 1-year budget.
So they could have waited e-levy and do it in 2027. Is that what we're saying?
No, but I think with the e-levy, they said the first budget. Anyway, so they're talking about the 24-hour economy. I mean, the fact that there's been no explicit provision made for it. What do you think around that? We are told earlier in the budget that a comprehensive policy will be presented to Parliament. Is it that the policy will come before maybe in the next year? Allocations will be made for it? What's the thinking around that?
You see, remember that the 24-hour economy, however big a concept it is actually dependent on specific sectors, etc., working in a different way. And so my understanding of no specific budget is that it's going to be included in the various
sector
budgets, and that the policy will show how each sector is going to go and contribute to this. Remember also that for the 24-hour economy to work well, even though the supply side doesn't matter, the demand side matters a lot more.
Both, yeah.
Right? Because, and my simple explanation is always like this. As we sit, there are pharmacy shops that close at 8 o'clock. There are pharmacy shops that open 24 hours. Reason being that where there's a demand, where a pharmacy shop is on the road opposite Kolebu, it's open 24 hours. Where a pharmacy shop is in some corner of my neighborhood in Tema, it will close at 9 o'clock. Because after 9 o'clock, very little demand comes in. So rather than say the 24-hour economy does not work because there's no been a huge sectoral, a huge allocation to it in itself, let's look at how each sector will contribute to the 24-hour economy. How demand is going to be driven, what the supply side is. Because, for example, if you talk about security, shouldn't that mean that even under the current dispensation with the police, etc., security will be enhanced for all of us? Will that require a completely separate allocation to the police?
But you know, not to interrupt.
So,
not to interrupt.
Okay.
But if that was the case, It should have been indicated in the budget for us.
I'm offering my opinion. I'm not the one who drafted the budget.
But let's discuss the budget.
I'm coming. When I read the budget and I didn't see anything there, this is how I interpreted it, and I moved on.
That's a convenient interpretation.
Oh, no, it's I think,
okay.
That's fine. So now the person with the answers, hopefully, Madam Anakoti. I mean, yes, we will take a short break. We'll take a break soon. I mean, the next few minutes. So Joe can take leave of us. Joe has other things to attend to.
My brother Joe leaves.
Yes, Joe has to leave because he has other things to do.
Leave. Can I make some quick comments before Joe leaves?
Okay, great. Do.
Because I want to say it whilst he's here. Number one, Richard, the economy had not turned the corner by the end of 2024. There were signs from the domestic debt restructuring and some of the foreign debt restructuring that we would have relief post 2027. But the economy itself had not turned the corner. And clearly, that's why people did not vote for the party that went out. So please, Joe is very right on that fact, one. Two, the issue about Adonoo or the Minister of Finance, that most likely the IMF appraisal, which will come up in April, will result in a possible fail, is because of what it will be looking at. And it will be looking at 2023, 2024, and the macroeconomic indicators that were being handled at the time. We were still in distress even in 2024, after the negotiations had taken place. Remember that Ghana had defaulted on its debt. That is trauma at its highest. So that had happened. So therefore, his prophecy that perhaps there will be a fail does not mean that things will not go well going forward and that he's being unpatriotic. He's just stating the fact. We accepting our problem.
Was it necessary?
Excuse me. Yes, it is necessary. Before you fix a problem, you must identify it. It's planning 101. You identify the problem, you accept it, and then you can come out with solutions for it. So based on that, now that we are sending out the right policy signals, the IMF knows we will be working on it. Foreign lenders know we'll be working on it. We Ghanaians know that then we are working on getting that done. So that was important. We also don't have this grand transformation agenda you talk about. We talk about an economic transformation agenda. And that will take time, of course. We are putting all the policies in place. We are putting the laws in place. I heard you talk a little about the 24-hour economy and the fact that it didn't show up in the budget. And Joe tried to explain to you why he moved on. I'll tell you why. The 24-hour economy policy, as the minister said, will come back to Parliament for proper discussion and how it will play out. It requires changes in laws. One of the major changes in laws will be in the labor law. You don't just start a 24-hour economy without changing labor laws. So that will happen. Two, we will have to fix the energy sector because power is going to be very important for the 24-hour economy. There are certain key areas that need to be fixed, need to be made proper before that policy is even presented in Parliament. Otherwise, people like you, Richard, will tear it apart. So we will tread with caution, we will get to it, and we will fix it and we will do it.
So that doesn't mean that
it just gives an indication of what you will do, but you don't rush into actioning the budget.
So doesn't mean that the 24-hour economy will not start, implementation of it will not start this year or in this budget cycle.
It will start this year.
If we have to fix the energy sector issues, fix other issues, law, etc. How much does it take to change a law or to amend a law?
So the laws will take some time to fix. It's not a lot of time, so it will be this year. The energy sector is deep in trouble, but we still have a running situation. So that will be based on a percentage change. So yes, the 24-hour economy will begin this year. Therefore, you notice that the minister was careful to also present just the overall budget and said the sectors will come and present their own budget. He didn't want to waste people's time. There is yet more to be done within the year, and it will come out. So we will discuss the 24-hour economy policy. So, Richard, you will be very much part of that this year. Also, the platforms that need to be in place will be there. And even though we may fail the IMF test by April, we have shown policy indications that we can overcome that, and therefore they will give us that chance to move forward. And that's where the adjustments will take place. So that is definitely going to happen. So the big push is also going to be a big part of making sure that we have infrastructure for the transformation agenda and to make sure the private sector participates in that. I think I said earlier that government, hopefully in a number of years, will be able to take a back seat so the private sector can really lead the economic transformation agenda and make it a reality. So it's all being said in good faith, and it's being said as part of the process, the steps to achieving what we all want to achieve. Honestly, if you take an NDC manifesto and an MPP manifesto, we all are looking to the golden future. We are all looking to a good medium-term to long-term future. But it is how we do it. And I heard Richard talk about capacity to manage. There's no doubt that the NDC government has a better capacity to manage our economy. We've done it before. What you described as 2013, 2014, 15 issues, and the reason that we went to the IMF, we saw it again in 2023, and even worse. So that is something that, due to several factors, these things happen, and you have the capacity to manage. And there's no doubt that Ghanaians have the capacity to manage. I don't even want to go into politics on that. I think we all have the capacity to manage our economy to a better place. It needs a transformation of the mind. We need to agree that we want our economy to improve, and we work towards that.
Very well.
I think we talked to some of those things, and the fact that we didn't see too many of the details, but those details will come out even after the audits, the forensic audits, because we are still finding out exactly the situation. When we spoke about taking money from the tax refund account, reducing it from 6% to 4% so we can have some to take, it needs a law to allow that, a change in law to allow that. Remember that there is purpose for all these things. A tax refund account has purpose, although it's still under the general tax umbrella. But when you are changing purpose, you need to be careful. And I think that's right when Franklin spoke to the intel he got, that the money was being used for unintended purposes. You shouldn't do that. And the NDC government will not condone.
Very well. I know you're on fire, but
and then we'll use the funds for the right thing.
I know you're on fire, but I will come back to you. So we look at the specific allocations. I mean, Richard is when it throws in a lot of things. So
politics.
No, but he has a style.
Out of campaign season.
No, he has a style, and it's interesting. All right, so of course we'll take a short break. After which we'll be joined by Professor Brafo Insedu, Head of Department of Data Science and Economic Policy, University of Cape Coast. Joe Jackson, thanks so much for joining us. He will take leave of us. But before we go, let me take just two of your messages, then we make progress. Selorm, why can't Mr. Richard Anyagba be objective for just a minute? If monies were used on digging a useless hole called Cathedral in the past, Mr. Anyagba glorified it and has seen nothing wrong with it, why can't he applaud the current finance minister for correcting the wrongs that led the MPP to the bush? MPP's continual unnecessary criticism of the current government is nauseating. This is Chris from Ashale Bochwe. Alima Silva from New York says, I can't comprehend why those who have totally destroyed our economy have the gut to be throwing their weight around talking about the 2025 budget. Selorm, earlier they stopped the self-righteousness, but the earlier they stopped the self-righteousness, the better for them to reorganize their party and think about coming back to compete in the 2030 general elections. This is from Alima Silva in New York. We take a short break. When we come back, we look at the specific allocations. I mean, Women Development Bank, the big push, Office of Government Machinery, and all of that, and try to make some sense of it. And we'll have Professor Insedu joining us as well. Franklin Kujo is still on. Richard Anyagba is here. This is The Big Issue. Don't go away.
It's time for the Swesco 66th anniversary celebrations and alumni homecoming. The dates, Friday 21st of March 2025 through till Sunday the 23rd of March 2025. Now on Friday at At 10 a.m. at the school complex, How I Got There. At 1:30 p.m. at the forecourt of the school complex, Alumni Interhouses Gary Soakings Experience. At 6 p.m. on campus, Candlelight Procession. At 8 p.m. at the school complex, Alumni Roll Call and Welcomes Jam with the Kwampa Band. On Saturday at 8 a.m. at the Esther Hansen Grounds, speech and prize-giving ceremony. At 1 p.m., the commissioning of the new Masters Flats. At 1:45 p.m. at the school complex, Alumni All-Year Groups Lunch. At 7 p.m. at the school complex, Alumni Dance Party with Inchin Chin Band. Then on Sunday at 9 a.m., Thanksgiving service at the Esther Hansen Grounds. It's the 66th anniversary celebrations and alumni homecoming of Swesco. Semper Cum Optimus. Always with the best.
Life is a celebration of moments. Big and small.
The sun is scorching, I'm feeling the heat.
With Piva Drink, every moment becomes a refreshing celebration. From the beach to your home, in every corner of your world, Piva Drink at a burst of refreshment.
Give me Piva cocktail and tangerine.
Celebrate every moment with Piva Drink. Refreshment for every occasion. Piva Drink, a taste you will love.
P for Piva.
This advert is FDA approved.
You're welcome back. This is the big issue. We just returning from our break and discussing the budget generally, whether it will turn the economy around. The NDC government appears very upbeat about it. They think that this is a good budget to help us pick up the pieces from where the previous government left off. So we've been looking at this generally with Madame Monacote, former Deputy Finance Minister, Richard Ahinagba, Director of Communications of the NPP, Joe Jackson, who just left, was part of the discussion. Of course, Franklin Kujo is here. Now, we're joined by Professor William Brafo Insedu, who is the head of department at Data Science and Economic Policy, University of Cape Coast. Prof, good morning. Welcome to the program. Good to have you. You may want to unmute so that we can hear you. Okay. So Prof, welcome to the program. Just your preliminary thoughts, then we'll come back properly for you to do some proper analysis. The budget, many words have been used to describe it. What's your assessment of the budget so far? You may want to unmute, Prof. We still cannot hear, Prof.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now, yes.
Yeah, so I think what they have presented is the way to go. I mean, they've just assumed office. And I think we first have to deal with the problems that we have, the debt crisis, the debt situation, the fact that we have issues related to fiscal. We have substantial fiscal risk factors that we have to deal with. Now, if you ask me about, I think I was listening, somehow I got cut off because we're having internet challenges, where there was an argument over whether there's something about 24-hour economy that one of the panelists is saying he can't really see anything from the budget. But I would say that no, when you talk about 24-hour economy, that is a whole program that it demands a plan. We have to talk about what can be dealt with in the short term, what can be dealt with in the medium term. And then and also remember that we have a 4-year cycle. We don't know who is going to come next after 4 years. So even though that is the vision is 24-hour economy to create jobs, have a resilient production base. It takes this one at a time. So for me, it is hopeful. I would say that there is hope. There are prospects. If you look at the budget carefully, there are prospects. And I would say that rather than being skeptical, why don't we wait till we have the mid-year review? Then we can say that, hey, I don't think there's anything substantial. There's something that is really pointing to the fact that we are going to make any inroads. So let's wait for the mid-year review. They've just stated their intentions. We don't know whether the allocations being made to specific sectors would take care of what they want to do at the initial phase of the 24-hour program implementation or not. So let's wait for the mid-year review, then we can comment. Then we can say whether they are serious or not about the 24-hour economy they are talking about. So that is my take. I think it's a laudable statement. One step at a time. Let's start from where we took off. Let's start from where we had. I mean, there are issues to deal with. Inflation is still a problem. Let's bring it down. I think the problem we have in this country is that most of the times, every government that anyone that comes to power, voted into power, comes in and say the one who just voted out, they didn't do much, and we are coming to right the wrong. But I would say that our problem in this country is more of sustainability. We always talk about achieving macroeconomic stability, and then we always come back after 4 years. We come back to talk about the same thing, right? So what isn't right is we have problems, our structural problems. The structure of production in the country needs to be re-looked at. If we really want to contain inflation, we want inflation to be at low rates beyond 4 years, the 4-year cycle. So when another party takes over, that party is not now coming to think about restoring macroeconomic stability. So if the structure of the economy is dealt with, we restructure the way we do things in the country. We put incentives structure in place to ensure that we have sustainable investments. We have funds flowing in, and likely so to the productive sectors of the economy, where we can actually grow the economy and tax and increase revenue. That is the way, I think that's the way to go. So it's too early to start saying we are skeptical and we don't think they are going to make there's nothing in the budget. Let's wait. When we come to media review, we will all talk about it.
But it doesn't stop anybody from analyzing the budget to say, okay, at this rate, you cannot do much with this. So, for example, they say they want to do the Women Development Bank. You just allocate 50 million Ghana cedis for it. Well, you know that for a bank, the minimum capital requirement, for example, is 400 million. How do you say that this can happen in this budget cycle, or this will be a success this year? So these questions we have to ask. So I think that's what the discussion really has been. Of course, we need to wait to see how they do it, but we can see or make projections from what they have put in there. All right. So great. So
you are right.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
You are right. Oh, you go on.
Great. So as a preliminary comment, great. So let me go back to Madam Onakote. I'll come back to Franklin Kuju in a bit. So we'll deal with the specific allocations and the matters that have arisen therefrom. All right. So Madam Onakote, we know that there were a number of manifesto promises which the minister brilliantly tried to deal with, and so for many of them, he said they had delivered or they were delivering. So, for example, he said they committed to running a lean and efficient government of 60 ministers. They have delivered. They committed to scrapping the e-levy. They have delivered. They committed to scrapping the betting tax, betting/winnings tax. Delivered. Committed to eliminate academic fees at first year for public tertiary students. Delivered. Committed to providing free tertiary education for people with disability, delivered, etc. A number of them listed. But when we look at the delivery itself and the allocations made to the deliveries, people have said they are not really realistic. So, for example, the big push, $10 billion big push, And just a little around $800 million, about 13 billion or so cedis is been allocated to that. We need to understand what is the thinking, because many say if you average it over the 4-year period, we should be looking at about $2.5 billion a year. Here you are, less than $1 billion. How sure are we that we are going to realize this big push?
Okay, thank you so much, Selorm. Just before I get to the answers to that question, which is very important, I wanted us to quickly also know that, the minister talked about simplifying the tax regime, especially with respect to VAT, because many Ghanaians are now totally confused about the VAT. Okay. And I think subsequently there have been discussions, but bottom line, that VAT system is going to be unpacked. If you recall, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, early in his time, packed the sales tax and all that into one big tax. So the VAT shot up to effectively about 21 point something percent and even a little higher. So for us, we are going to simplify this tax regime. Too many people do not have clarity on how the taxes work, and it's all just mashed up as so we'll unpack it and then we'll make it very, very simple so that Ghanaians know exactly what they are.
I think, Madam Onakota, I think we are losing you. The network is, I think we are losing you. The network is I think, acting up a bit. Is it better now? So this is the big issue, 97.3 City FM and on Channel 1 television. The discussion is on the budget, asking the questions that have arisen from the budget. A few of your messages that you have sent to us. This one from Cornelius Suobo in the Bono region says, we the youth are happy with the 2025 budget due to the abolishment of the following taxes, betting, e-levy, emission, and so on. My worry was the betting tax not initiated, as said by the former minister for finance in the person of Dr. Amin Adam. The authority has to deal with that issue and refund all the money deducted as betting tax. So blessed morning to you as host and your panelists in the studio. Okay, so that's his concern. He said the monies must be refunded to them. All right. Yes, Madam Kote, yes. I think we lost you briefly. You're making a point. Yes.
Yeah, I was basically saying that we will simplify the tax regime, especially to do with the VAT. It will be unpacked, and then when it's put together, Ghanaians will have clarity and will know exactly what the VAT consists of and how it works. So I wanted to just simplify that.
Okay, great.
Not simplify,
clarify that, yes. So now deal with me on the allocations, yes.
Yeah, you asked me about allocations to some of the big items that we had talked about. So clearly, the budget showed that no one policy that we had discussed had its full allocation. I believe, you see, I think Professor Williams spoke a little to it, and I hope that it speaks to capacity to manage. Whenever you have a policy, your first few months are going to be feasibility periods in terms of putting licenses in place, getting the plans in place, getting those who work on it. If I recall, and I just want to use this example, although it's a very bad one, the cathedral. From when it was said that there will be a national cathedral, we noticed that a couple of years went into getting the architects, the project managers, the contractors, the designs, so forth. Even though it was for a project that some parts of this country didn't think was necessary and some thought was necessary. Anyway, for our big push items, these are critical projects that attend to the transformation agenda of our economy. Not even social, but of the economy, to get GDP up. And I'll speak to some of them. But number one is that this is the beginning. And therefore, allocations have been made for all the pre-works these allocations you see are for pre-works. You rightly said that the Women Development Bank, it will require 400 million cedi capital. Therefore, 51 million cedis is definitely not the capital. That is allocated for the pre-works that need to be done. And I believe strongly, and this is just coming from my point of view, that with respect to the Women's Bank, there may be some changes because we are all going to advocate for some changes to be made. We believe that there is infrastructure and personnel already in place in different areas. For example, in the Ghana Exim Bank, for example, in some of the banks that we have, Ghana Commercial Bank and so forth, where we could have desks to attend to women businesses, and that we may not need to set up a complete bank with new personnel and all the costs associated with it. We could start by having desks in existing financial institutions, lending out the money quickly to the women so that the impact is right there. And then in the medium to long term, look at building a bank for it. After all, we've had that before. I think in the last 20 years or so, there was such a women's bank that didn't quite
that collapsed with the other banks.
Yes. So I think that most likely we are all going to, as it were, put pressure, and it will be easy pressure because the government does not have excess funds anyway, but to set up slowly and to start to make impact by putting desks in some of the financial institutions. Again, with the $10 billion big push, that is for infrastructure. That's going to go into irrigation, into port expansion, and all those things that facilitate trade and will grow our GDP. Once again, the full amount is not there. Yes, it is not there, but we need to start somewhere. We cannot allocate the full amount and then start struggling with it. What the Ministry of Finance and the Minister has done is to allocate what is needed now until a review time, which will be later in the year. But what is needed now to set up the policy so that it can be rolled out. But we will also ensure that conversation goes around trying to get some of the policies to take effect so that we can show impact right away, albeit baby steps. Remember, we are coming from a very distressful situation. Ghana has never really defaulted on debt the way that that debt default took place 2022, 2023. We've never had that.
But it's also fair, in saying that, it's also fair to give the background, which is that we came on the back of a global pandemic and the RE war, which we had never seen. So I think that context must be painted, shouldn't it?
There was that, but it did not have to result in a debt default situation. Because we had set up the structures, the sinking fund, which is the debt service reserve accounts, and unfortunately, monies were not used the way they should have been used. So that is what happened, because we were not the only nations in the world that were attacked by COVID or that had food insecurity as a result of not being able to import food. And in fact, most of our food does not come from Ukraine anyway, comes from the Far East. So that is not quite true. We did have the situation. We are recovering from it. And because we want to show and signal that all these policies will take root and benefit, we will start to allocate the funds that are necessary to make sure that the policies take root and are able to take off. So yes, any amount you see in any of them may not be the full amount that is required, but it is the necessary minimum that is required to set the ball rolling for all of them. I don't want to go into each one because it will be too much and will take too much of your time.
Yes.
But note that there will be a tracking system, and whatever has gone in will be a portion of what was decided earlier would go in, and it will start to help that policy to roll. As for the 24-hour economy, I think Professor William has spoken for the government very well.
Let's deal with this. Let's deal with this quickly before I go around. The Office of Government Machinery. Of course, I know the government has tried to explain a bit of that, but with Office of Government Machinery, an allocation of 2.7 billion to the Office of Government Machinery appears quite huge, and that has been the concern. Even that, the previous government, which we said was bloated, had just a little over 300 million allocated to that office. what accounted for the huge jump in the numbers?
So I was not part of the budget, as you know, Selorm. Budget process, I was not part of that. But I will conjecture because I can feel what the Ministry of Finance needs to sort out for the economic transformation agenda to be rolled out. The government's machinery is going to require those funds because that's where most of the policy decisions are going to come out of. And again, most of the feasibility, most of the discussions, most of the advisory role, both in-house and externally, and most of getting stuff ready is going to start from there and then go down to the sectors. So I can see the need to have a certain amount of money allocated. However, knowing Minister Forson, trust me, he's going to come back and show you that he did not even get them to use up to a certain percentage of it. But he's making sure that they are comfortable to be able to set the platform for that transformation agenda. I don't believe that they will use the full amount. It's a budget, it's an allocation. It does not mean that all of that will be used. But I can understand how people will feel. Why are you putting so much towards that? We are coming on the back of difficulties. We are coming on the back of a nation that has been recklessly managed, unfortunately. And therefore, we need to allocate these funds so that in the event that is needed, it's there and it's already been allocated for use. But if it's not, it will quickly go to another part of the economy that needs it. So these are, as it were, allocations, but they will be used judiciously. And people, I mean, the annual reports will come out and everyone will see how those funds have been used. So no fear that government machinery has that. That's where a lot of the preliminary works are going to start from, and therefore the allocation must be given there. And as you've seen with all the other policies, it's only the minimum thresholds that have been allocated. By the mid-year review, we'll have a clearer view, we'll have the laws in place, we'll have the policies fleshed out, not manifesto type policy, but policies that are government policies. And also there may be some adjustments made by dissenting voices or constructive criticism from academia, from opposition. Opposition is a very important part of governance. From opposition, from even external people who have a vested interest in Ghana doing well, including the mining sector, the oil sector, all the sectors where we have foreign direct investment flowing into. So there will be some adjustments, some moderations, and therefore, by the mid-year review, we'll have a clearer view of how these policies will be rolled out.
Thank you.
They will definitely be rolled out.
Great. Let me speak to Franklin now. Franklin, my other concern is this budget has been read on the back of a growth of 5.7%, but the projection for the budget or for the year is in place at 4%. What's happening there? A gross international reserve, about 4 months import cover, and it does appear that we are projecting just 3 months at the end of the cycle. What's happening there?
Well, I think the finance minister is trying to be modest. I can understand the concerns that people are expressing, that it's not ambitious enough. But I don't think ambition without ambition that is probably just ambition without legs are actually what we need. You want to be able to steer the affairs of state in such a way, or the economy in such a way, that you do not bend too much by the time you are trying to maybe get to your mid-year, and then you probably want to change course drastically. So for me, I think we should relax a little bit. And I can understand that, but I think it is important. Look, the 4.4 is 4.4% GDP projected, right?
I think I see. Yes.
Right. Well, it is not really out of 10. It's not out of. It's not an outlier. If you look at the averages we've done since this whole this economic difficulty, economic challenges before us. So I'm not too sure it's really out of place. And so maybe we should probably just wait a little bit. I think we need to. What if what if he probably goes beyond 4.5 or 4.4? It's possible. So the only way I can understand this is that he's trying to be very cautious and careful. That's all. There's really nothing wrong.
I see, because one would expect that taking it from 5.7, I mean, we expect to grow, given that we said the economy was not properly managed and all of that. 5.7, now that we hope to manage it well, I mean, perhaps we should have been looking to top 5.7 at least.
Well, maybe there's some argument to be made, especially if we look, if you analyze what actually propelled the 5.7 growth, right? Actually, digitalization. So Amin was right when he said that it was the digitalization and not necessarily not necessarily gold that Ato suggested had been the reasons why this thing grew. So presumably, if we come into this year and you are taking off e-levy, possibly there'll be some jump in, people will probably use this more and facilitate people's, expenditure on these things that we normally use our money for in the digital space. And probably that would have propelled much more growth. I was probably looking at other sectors that are not likely to grow because the government is not going to pump in too much money. We've all just said here that the projections that we made had been reduced by about 10 billion Ghana cedis, right? So the budget has been reduced from the previous year about 10 billion Ghana cedis. That's significant, you understand? So if the government is not going to spend and propel growth in a particular direction, maybe he's done the analysis and he thinks that, well, look, if I netted off, nothing will change that much, and rather 4.4 will be the thing. I can understand. There's some good argument to be made there, but I think for me, an economy that is coming out of this, and especially, don't also forget, he's also going to pay debt. You understand? That's another thing that I'd even forgotten to factor in. He's going to pay debt. I don't think the last administration, we plan to pay debt, but we had not started paying the debt, right? Have we really started paying all those debt? What they did significantly was to, and Amin and put it really well, to negotiate those debt restructuring, that restructuring that they did save us close to, forgotten the figures, but they were substantial. Even if it was about 5.5 billion that was shaving off or taken off from our debt, it's useful. And then I think there were savings that were also, it was about 7 billion. That's substantial. So if this administration is going to spend close to 250 billion Ghana cedis in settling debt between now and a few other, how many years? Probably the next 3 years.
The next 4 years.
The next 4 years. Clearly, they have to make some adjustments. And so for me, I don't think if you also want so much, you go around wearing gold trinkets and if you're accused of seducing the Chiswa, you don't go to his palace shaking your waist. You've got to be careful. So you want to reduce the amount of exposure, and then so that you can settle your debt quiet.
I see.
It's a debate. Yeah.
Great. Richard, I know you've been making notes, etc. But I think that what I'm appearing to be getting around the table is that we should give them time. This is just the first budget. This early days yet. We need to give them time. It's not as if they've been around for a long time. And so by mid-year, we should be seeing the picture clearly. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think that is overly patronizing, especially when my big sister says that as far as capacity is concerned, they have it. If they have capacity, why do they need time? If you are the Pele of the world and there's football before you, you play. You don't tell
the game has settled. The referee must blow the whistle. But the game has settled.
By the time you settle, if they score you 2, 3, 4, then you are done. You understand? So the point is that we expect that they would be able to do it, so they must do it. But you see, yes, and especially watching my good brother Franklin be very, very nice. Oh, it's okay, 4.4, it doesn't really matter, and all of that. It's very exciting to see that suddenly he's become very, very tempered in terms of his critique of government. I think that's okay.
But
it's also in line.
Early days.
In line, maybe yes. In line with the early days theory. Yeah. Okay, so we'll go with that. But you see, I disagree with Madame Mona about the idea that the economy they inherited was recklessly managed. See, if it was recklessly managed and we budgeted for compensation, at 327 million, right? Approximately 327 million. And the same office, you are budgeting in excess of 8 folds of that, 8.3 folds of that.
So let me provide. So we spoke to government spokesperson Felix Ofosu-Kwakye. What he said was that a lot of the ministries that have been collapsed have their agencies now drawing from the office of the president or the office of the
Not
government.
all of them.
Wait. So for example, GNA, you mentioned a number about over 1,000. GBC, over 1,000 people. GNA, quite a number of people. ISD, over 1,000 people.
You increase their salary by 10%.
No, what I mean is all those guys were drawing salary under the Ministry, for example, of Information. But that has been collapsed. And so a lot of them have now
Ministry of
been placed.
Information budget is not anywhere near that. It's not anywhere near that.
How about the argument that national security is now under the office of the president?
National security, you see their budget is less than, I think, about 1-point-something billion. Yeah, that's it. I'm saying that it's just unprecedented. It's not acceptable. But I'm quite amenable to the explanation, and I like that Madam Kote says she was going to hazard a guess in terms of reasonable guess as to what might account for that. But it's just too much. Okay, whatever expertise they are going to need to kickstart things is just too much, right? If you need money to invest, and the money you need to bring people around the table is more than the money you're going to, the capital you're going to invest, you must as well stop the business and save the money, buy treasury bill and leave off the interest. You understand? So that one is a difficulty. But you see, Selorm, I am looking at this budget and I'm saying that, look, the allocations I am seeing, yes, the idea that we have to take it easy and all of that. You didn't come into office talking about you're going to take it easy. You talked about how is it that we are living in a very desperate situation and you are coming to save the day. You are coming to save the day, it must reflect.
But if they save all the day today, what will they save tomorrow? What will they save tomorrow?
I don't know who said that, so I'm not going to go into that. But you understand. So for me, it is very, very concerning. This budget, if any Ghanaian was looking, or anybody, you included, myself included, if we're looking for any effort by the government to reduce cost of living, they failed us. There was no attempt at that at all, to the extent that cost of living is likely to go up and will go up. You look at what the finance minister promised us, and he did so in the budget, to say that PORC from going forward will have to do quarterly.
But it's always been the case.
But I'm saying
part
that
of the IMF.
But I'm saying, if you are saying cost of living was high coming into office, that's not what you come and tell us. Just as they said that when they come, they'll remove the betting tax, which they did and were thumping their chairs. They should also look at cost of living, because that was a promise they made that we can't buy kinky, one ball of kinky, we can't buy it. They were doing all of that. Okay, so if you're going to do quarterly review, which quarterly review, according to the minister, should take into account inflation, should take into account production cost, and should take into account exchange rate, which means that we'll be fortunate if exchange rate and those variables are looking good, then perhaps we'll have a reasonable. But in the unlikely event that those things fall out of alignment, which is more likely than not, if that happens, you're going to have cost of living go up. Okay? The same cost of living impact. So you have one leg where cost of living is going to go up. Your tariffs will go up. In addition to that, there's a massive tariff review that is promised for the fourth quarter in October. So that's going to come. So your 2020.
But we've always had the tariff review quarterly for the past 2 years.
I'm saying we're doing that, but in addition to the quarterly review, there's a massive one that the finance minister has promised in the fourth quarter. Okay, that comes is going to add to your tariff. Okay, your utility cost, and that will affect water and electricity. Again, they have taken the step to increase the cost of gas. Okay, which is what the input that you need to be able to generate electricity. That is an outright addition to your tariffs. Okay, now the special import levy, which would have expired this year or probably this year, No, last year, actually.
I mean, end of
this year, yes.
Yeah, end of this
has been extended to 2028. Okay, you know what that is doing? That is adding to costs. All the import consumables that we get, all the imports that we get for input, so industry is going to struggle. I've seen AGI respond to that already, and they feel that that should be taken off the books, but then we have extended it. That's effective tax that has been imposed, right? It's tax. And so that is going to affect your spare parts. That's going to affect fuel costs because of the import component of that. That is going to affect your medicine. It's going to affect almost everything.
Well, the point is that it would have been a relief, but we won't have that relief, so we'll continue the way we are.
So it's a tax. It's effective tax that has been brought. So that 2% or so is going to add to our cost of living. So really, if you are looking at it, all right, this budget coming from the campaign and the sound bites that we got, the idea that we're coming to make things better, this budget does not offer that at all. It actually is going to make things worse. I pray it doesn't. But the indication, if you look at the budget, is going to make things difficult for Ghanaians. And I think that we need not to give the government too much space and too much comfort. We need to hold them to account so that they can be prudent. You know, there's a temptation in feeling that everybody likes you, right? It'll make you complacent. It will make you take your eye off the ball. So I don't side with the argument that, oh, you should allow the government space to do whatever. I think one of your beautiful texters say that, oh, we should stop criticizing the government or whatever. We're not criticizing the government because we want to. We're doing so largely in good faith so that they can keep their eye on the ball. So that some of these essential matters that they indicated that they want to come and fix, they must fix it. They must fix it. Cost of living is likely to go out of control. And that, for me, is problematic. And that is one thing that I think they should look at. You see, my sister talked about the Women's Bank. I wanted to ask a question. Maybe when I'll talk about it when she comes, she can answer. You see, the Women's Bank, I think it's a big disappointment, but I'm happy she demonstrated that with her own interest, advocacy, and all, things are likely to change. So that is good. But I think that if it became difficult, I don't see, that's why I would need her help, or maybe to see that, how different would that be from what Maslock is already doing? So that if it is a challenge, okay, and it's going to take a whole lot of infrastructure and cost to be able to bring it off the ground, why don't we
expand?
Yes, repurpose the Maslock and then look at its mission and objective and direct it to a place where it can achieve this and be promoted and a bit more rebranded to be able to do this at a level that the Women's Bank was designed to do. Because Maslock, about 80 or 90% of its business is with women already. And so that is something that I think that we should look at generally to be able to see the position with which we can manage so that women don't feel left out. Because already the women are disappointed with this government. A lot of women are not happy.
Just in 2 months.
Oh, yes, of course. But even this cost of living thing I'm telling you, and all the nice things we are saying, Franklin is very happy saying that, oh, the economy. The women in the markets are not happy.
No, but we saw the finance minister engage them,
yes,
and they said a few things to him.
No, but that was before the budget.
Yes.
So after the budget, okay, because they were happy because they were telling him things they feel he's going to factor in the budget. He didn't factor the things they told him. You understand? A woman was telling, I think it was one of the TV stations interview live in the market, was saying that the betting tax things that were taking off, she doesn't see how that is relevant to her. Because the number...
Levy, she will feel it.
Right. But then she was seeing that, okay, so how is that going to affect the general condition? And that the number of people engaged in betting is minuscule. But she was looking more about cost of living matters. How they were going to reduce petroleum product. That was not done. But fuel has gone up some 2 or 3 times already. How they're going to do that? How they're going to lower interest rates? How they're going to improve and lower transport costs, and how are they going to deal with matters to do with access to credit. So these were issues that she was talking about. So whilst at our level, at Franklin level, we're talking about the economy, maybe let's be a bit relaxed, people are desperately looking for relief, and that relief has not come in this budget.
So the budget, for example, talks about the Agreed for Economic Transformation agenda. And the essence of that is to reduce food inflation.
Exactly.
We know food inflation is a big part of,
the
headline inflation we see. So if this, and there's some allocation made for that, if this succeeds, then the food inflation will come down. That will trickle down to affect the cost of living as well. We have in the budget the establishment of the gold board. The essence of it is to help with our exchange.
The currency situation.
Exactly. So if that is addressed, then the exchange
rate... We've been selling gold long before the gold board.
The exchange rate issues will improve. Now people go to China to bring stuff in. The stability on the exchange rate front would affect, what happens in the market. That is cost of living being worked on.
No.
So generally, I mean, it does appear...
We've been selling gold long time. Long time we've been selling...
But this is now going to be done in a
more regulated... So what is it?
More regulated.
Even that, maybe Madam can help us. That 279 million allocation to it, and I'm told in the budget it's a revolving fund. Is that correct? So if it's revolving, does that mean at that point that's what is a seed money that is given to them, or are we going to continue to fund them every year? You understand? We need to see, because the gold market is self-sustaining. We can do this without having to put that money there. So for me, if that is what they want to do, fair enough. But I think that they haven't worked much on that. They agreed for economic transformation.
Let's feed Ghana. Feed Ghana.
What is the allocation to it?
No, I've not seen
I think it's about 100 million or so.
Yeah, but there are a few other things. So they agreed for economic transformation. All of that will feed into the...
But that's what I'm telling you, that the total estimate for it in the budget is less than the appropriation for the Office of Government Machinery for compensation. It's a total of 2.1 billion. Okay, the agreed for economic transformation is 1.5 billion.
Yes.
Okay, so 1.5 billion. What can you do with that? What kind of transformation can you do with that? That's where you are looking at maybe the big push supporting it. The idea is not in question. We're saying that the spirit with which is being pursued, the energy behind it, I can't see it. You can't see it. But you can have good ideas.
Should we say that because people have said this budget is very simplified, no jargons, no technical details, and he has said that the ministries will present their own budget. They say the devil is in the detail. Can we say that all these details we are all asking for will be provided for, or will be provided by the specific ministries?
No, but the framework in terms of expenditure,
the headline expenditure,
has been provided in this. They can't do anything extraordinary when they come to tell us the specifics in terms of how they are going to pursue agreed for economic transformation. They're just going to tell us the fine details in terms of we're going to do ABCD, focus on aquaculture, focus on this and that and that. That's not cost, right? But the cost element has been decided, and that is even actually going to constrain them. And the reason this was done ahead of theirs is to be able to put some fencing around them so they don't go out of bounds in thinking large. So now they've been boxing.
But on the social front, just a quick one before I bring in Professor Nsedu. I mean, your guys are Ketu South, etc., who were affected by the tidal waves. I mean, there's been quite some good allocation in there for them.
I think 200 million,
that should make
200 million or so. Yeah, I mean, I commend the government and the president, even though it took him a long time to come. I was happy he came. If it was MPP, day one, they'll be saying, where is the president? They'll be looking for the president with microscope. But it took him a very long time to come, but it was good. I saw him, he came in a grand style. He did something good for my people, and I appreciate that. I've been talking about this. I think the first time I went there, that is even late, was in January 17th or so I went there. It was bad. It was terrible. And we started talking about this till when they came, it was okay. And the interesting thing is that, Selorm, and this is my politics to say to the Volta region, that vote and make the region competitive. The Volta region is not competitive.
Ronaldo said they didn't vote for him. So
no, that's not what
he didn't even have to come.
No, that's not what the president said. No, but he went.
Yes, he didn't even
have to come. In fact, when Akufo-Addo won election in 2016, the first place he went to was Volta region.
No, because perhaps there was a need there. He just didn't go there for fun.
No, he went to see Togbe there. You understand? He went there. He was there. That was
then the president of the House of Chiefs.
No problem, but he went there. That was the first place he went.
But what's significant about that? It was because
it's appreciation. It's recognition.
That took him there was pressing, perhaps.
No. It was just to go and thank him. I mean, you need to see the nature of the conversation. Went there to appreciate him.
I see.
You understand? A recognition of the region. But I'm saying that I commend the government. I think that beyond that, there was something I saw somewhere in the budget, I think. Some indication of starting the sea defense project.
Yes.
I think they said something in there. So I commend them for that. The people deserve it. They've been voting for this NDC party, and they made the place their global, World Bank, but they haven't gotten anything. Honestly, nothing. And so this is a good thing that is happening. But it doesn't mean they should vote for them more. They should change, make the region competitive.
Is changing.
Well, let's not talk about that. But let's make the voter region electorally competitive.
Very well, Prof. I mean, a lot has been said. I mean, my concern is the growth figures. Franklin is trying to explain and all of that. What's your thinking around it? Because we expect to see growth, projected to even higher levels than the 5.7% we've seen. And also give me your take on the allocations for the flagship programs the government or the party in opposition campaigned on, for which reason we gave them the mandate.
Yeah, with the growth projection and inflation projection, these are figures. I mean, if I'm to be more scientific and objective, I mean, anybody who have been into policy making decision would tell you the fact that these figures are not just conjectured. They are simulations and forecasting exercises that are done to determine the capacity of the country. I mean, the growth potentials of the country, depending on prevailing conditions. So if they have come out to just say that overall they are expecting an overall GDP growth of 4%, it is based on prevailing conditions, right? I mean, we all know that, just as Madam Mona said, I mean, we are thinking about servicing debts. We are thinking about paying contractors, existing arrears that would have to be dealt with. So obviously, if you allocate part of your resource to settling your debts, you would have very little left to finance pro-growth projects. So I believe that is the basis for coming up with this figure. So I think the finance minister was just trying to be a bit more realistic in terms of what resources we have and can be put into pro-growth projects for us to grow the economy, grow economic activity. So for me, it is scientific, it's objective. Fine if we end up achieving higher than the 4% GDP growth. That is a plus. Okay, It's also based on resources that we are expecting to come in to the country. Mind you, we are competing with other countries, Cote d'Ivoire and other countries for foreign direct investment. So, the way investors behave. Okay, so for me, it's okay. It's okay if we say 4% GDP growth is modest because it is based on how resources will be allocated and how much we even have at all. And even with the 11.9% rate of inflation, that is also based on how the structure of production is in the country. Just as Richard and others were saying, food inflation is very, very important. How much we can supply in terms of food for the people is also very important. I think there was an issue, was this last year or somewhere, about when the weather condition did not seem favorable, and we're thinking of the fact that if we are not careful, we might end up having food shortage. So we needed to have some buffer, build some stock so that we wouldn't run into some difficulties, right? So, that's my take. Then in terms of resources allocated to flagship programs, I would say that, yes, you'd always possibly, they didn't start with pre-feasibility studies in time, but also remember that they've just come into governance. We've just come out of another election, they've just come into governance, so If it had been if we were talking about continuity, if we had just made the MPP government stay in power, then we can have something to say that why are you now coming to do pre-feasibility studies? Then possibly would have said that they might have already done some work waiting and hoping that they will be re-elected. Right? So, I mean, you need time to plan, you need time to really think about whether you are capable or not, depending on conditions that you are faced with. So, forecasting is done based on prevailing conditions, based on opportunities and constraints that you have. So I think it's in order.
I see. Talk to me about the gold board and how important it is economically to help drive down the cedi to dollar rate, especially as Richard just said, we've been selling gold for a very long time. So what will be particularly different about having a system like the cocoa board for the gold board? What difference would that make in our exchange rate scheme of things?
I'm thinking possibly, I may be right, I may be wrong. The gold board in a way may help put some checks on. For some time I will be talking about under declaration and that some of the gold producing companies, foreign owned gold producing companies in the country under declaring their outputs. Some leave the borders of our country unnoticed. So they might have mined so much and then they'll just record something that far lower. That possibly, so the gold board coming on board would help in terms of possibly monitoring, right? Monitoring some of these activities. But on the other hand, I would say that gold board may not help much. I'm using the word may because of our experience with cocoa board. I mean, we've always had issues with governance in this country. So if our attitude is right, then gold board will serve a good purpose.
I see. Great. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Let me take final remarks from Madam Onakote on this part of the discussion. So what are we to be looking forward to? What is next for government and your side of the aisle?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate all the comments from all your participants today. I would like to clarify one little thing that Professor Williams said. Prof, with the large-scale miners, they do not ordinarily take gold out and it's unaccounted for. They are properly registered, Minerals Commission, they have their concessions, they make their payments, EPA, they make sure that they are under the regulator. Whatever is shipped out is really accounted for. Where we have the issues in that industry, and I'm somebody from the mining industry, so I want to clarify that. It's on the area where you have the illegal miners, where you have buyers, foreign buyers coming into the country, going straight to the illegal mining sites, paying and picking up the gold and leaving. That's where you have problems. So the illegal mining issue is a big issue that we need to deal with as a country. But as for the large-scale miners, they are proper investors and they helped us for 2024 to show a growth in our GDP. They, again, together with the other extractive industry, especially the oil and gas sector, will once again help us to achieve the growth rate that we are projecting or even higher, including the others. So as for that sector, I'm always careful how we treat them because they have supported this nation and will continue to do so. Even their CSR alone is big. Their management of climate change, of our environment is huge. Their support of the central bank, huge. So I'm always careful that we don't tarnish them with the same brush that we try to paint the illegal miners. Illegal mining must end in this country. Small-scale miners who are going to be the people that the gold board will work with buying from small scale miners. That's the gold board. They are not buying from large scale, from the small scale. This way, they will regulate and make sure that the small scale miners are doing the right thing. They are mining properly. They are taking care of residuals, what is left on the ground in terms of environment. They are selling the right way. You know, they already used to do that under precious minerals because they were licensed buyers and they would refine through precious minerals and then sell. And I'm glad to see that it comes back under precious minerals. Let's see how that works. I like Professor Williams's point that the gold board should not become another cocoa board where they incentivize the miners and make them feel, not properly catered for so that we don't get the benefit. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. So we'll all keep an eye on that. So let's make sure the gold board role is properly executed. It's been laid out. Let's see that it's properly executed.
Very well.
So my concluding remarks on the budget is we always start from somewhere. Prof said it nicely. We were not in government before. We have brought our action plan that we want to execute. We will test some of them. We'll find out that some of them need adjustments. Some are good to go. Some need changes in the law, in getting licenses, even in behavioral attitude. Soft issues may need to be tackled. So there's a lot of work that will need to be done. A budget is a planning tool. You identify your problems, you allocate funds to try and resolve them. You make adjustments as you go along. And that's why we have a mid-year review. We are still under an IMF program. We have gone through a lot of heartache, 2022, 2023. And Richard knows that because he was part of that group. However, the idea is that together we should make those changes for Ghana to do well. Right now, we need credibility, one, as a government, two, as a nation. Therefore, the policies we come out must have those credibility. Because whether I'm NDC or MPP, when I go and stand on the Eurobond markets, they don't care. I'm Ghanaian, and they remember the story. When we talk about football, they remember us a great football nation, but they also remember the recent past where we haven't done well. So it's not about party politics, but we need to change that branding. I like Richard's point about perhaps using Maslock as well in the women, addressing women credit issues. That's something that we should definitely take on board. But I think that where we have started from is a good point. It's not about show off. It's about slow but sure. It's not about take it easy. It's about slow but sure. So we are going to be sure to use the resources judiciously to implement a economic transformation agenda that will turn Ghana around. I think Richard should give Franklin a break. Franklin is independent. When it's bad, you say it's bad. When it's good, you say it's good. So he's independent. And I don't think he should get on his case.
Very well.
Franklin, expect that you will tell us when we need to make changes. And you have done that in the past. I remember I've had a few arguments with you, and I'm happy because till 2016, you were helpful in showing us where we had gone crooked. So, Richard, give Franklin a break. He's still your friend.
I see.
Ghana must do. This is the resetting, and we'll get Ghana to where it must go with all of us our help.
Okay, great. So Franklin, here you are. There you are. Yeah, your concluding remarks on the budget.
Thank you, Honorable Kote. My concluding remarks are that clearly there's something to be said about the budget, which essentially takes care of its own. Let's just give them the opportunity. 6 months later, we'll come back and review, and then we'll decide whether things went the way we wanted or we need to change course. So, Richard, please come with us on this talk.
Great. Prof, final words before I come to Richard in studio to conclude his part on the budget. Okay, so Prof is gone. So, Richard, your concluding remarks on the budget.
Well, I think as I indicated earlier, I am quite amenable to, hoping along with the NDC, except to play my role as an opposition person who must hold their feet to the fire. and we're doing that in good faith. So I hope that Madam Korte said it right, that it's a planning tool, and they won't shy away from making adjustments where it is needed. And some of these things that we're saying is only designed to point to some of the things that they can adjust. And I think that with her posture, I think I'm confident that maybe they will get it right. And when they get it right, Ghana gets it right. I was just looking at the growth projection for Sub-Saharan Africa. I think it's just somewhere around, 4.2 or 4.3. Yes, 4.3. And I think that, they probably are playing it safe by estimating 4.4. But I think there's a lot they can do to drive growth. And so as we go along with their ability to adapt and, amend their fiscals, they can be in a position to drive growth, which is what we need to be able to create opportunities for our young people and then for business to thrive in our country. So I wish them well as Ghanaian, but we promise that we'll hold them constructively to account.
Great. So we'll take a short break. But before that, let me read a few of your messages that have come through. This one from Prince Henry in Kofroda says, since the NPP is saying they didn't implement the betting tax, the NDC government led by President John Mahama will investigate where the 51 million and 151 million the GRA reported in 2023 and 2024 respectively went to and come out with the truth. So Mahama cares and will deliver the Ghana we want to the good people of this country. I take a short break. When we come back, we will look at the other discussion, the IGP discussion. Let me say a big thank you to Madam Mona Korte, former Deputy Minister for Finance, and also Joe Jackson was here earlier, Professor William Brafo in Sedu. We'll return with Richard Ahiagba, Franklin Kujo, DSP Bright Odro, and Peter Tobu. Don't go away.
Something magical is happening. A celebration of tradition, flavor, and community. Welcome to the Backyard Village Food Festival 2025.
Taste the heart of your heritage with mouth-watering dishes from across the country like Ademe with Akple, Tozafi with Ayoyo soup, Kokonte, Apopranta, Rare Quine, and many more. From rich spices to sweet treats, it's a journey for your senses. We're taking you back to your village.
Oh yes, let's recreate our age-old recipes.
But it's not just about food, We're celebrating culture, connecting with family, and making memories that last a lifetime.
This March, let's come together and discover the flavors that make us who we are. The date is 29th and 30th of March 2025. The venue, Accra Metropolitan Assembly, and the time is 10 a.m. through till 6 p.m. each day.
The Back to Your Village Food Festival 2025, where food, fun, and tradition meet. See you there.
Interested vendors should call 0558-973-973 or 0205-973-973 to register. The Back to Your Village Food Festival 2025 is powered by Channel 1 TV with support from 97.3 City FM and is proudly sponsored by Gino, Koa Natural Cocoa Fruit Juice, and Pan-African Savings and Loans.
You're welcome back. This is the big issue, 97.3 City FM. Now, just gone by as a discussion on the budget. Madam Monakote, Professor Nsedu, of course, Joe Jackson was here earlier, and my two guests, Franklin and Richard. We're moving on now, and we're dealing with the new IGP, COP, Christian Teteyohunu, has been sworn in by the President, John Dramani Mahama, as a new Inspector General of Police, urging for a decisive action against all forms of misconduct, from bribery to abuse of power, ensuring that officers uphold integrity in their duties. The ceremony took place on Friday, March 14, at the Jubilee House. Channel One News' presidential correspondent, Akosia Ochri, was there for us, and she filed this report.
To bribe you and then continue to get focused on your work.
The appointment of Christian Teteyohunu as the new Inspector General of Police follows the removal of Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, who served as head of the police service from August 2021. President John Mahama expressed his appreciation to Dr. Ekufu-Dampare for his dedication.
Let me take this opportunity to also extend my deepest gratitude to the outgoing Inspector General of Police. He has served our nation with dedication and commitment, and his contribution to law enforcement and national security will not be forgotten. We thank him for his service and we wish him well in his future endeavors.
The new IGP, Christian Yohunu, is seasoned law enforcement officer with nearly 4 decades of service in the Ghana Police Service, served as the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of operations. Interestingly, the day of his appointment marks exactly 33 years since he was commissioned into the officer's corps. At his swearing in, the President called on the new IGP to address issues of corruption, bribery, and unprofessionalism within the police service.
Mr. IGP, your role will also involve rooting out corruption within the service. Corruption in law enforcement undermines justice and weakens public confidence in our security agencies. It is crucial that all forms of unethical behavior, from bribery to the abuse of power, are decisively dealt with. We must build a service that is respected both locally and internationally for its professionalism and integrity.
Another important call to the IGP was to focus on the welfare of police officers.
Additionally, I want to emphasize the importance of improving the welfare of officers under your command. Policing is a very demanding profession that requires sacrifice and dedication. Our officers must be well remunerated, adequately housed, and giving access to proper health care and psychological support. A motivated police force is a productive police force.
In response, IGP, while acknowledging the hard work and dedication of his predecessor, committed to leading with the diligence, integrity, and dedication necessary to maintain peace and security in the country.
This leadership position transcends mere title. It embodies a solemn responsibility that demands unwavering vigilance, integrity, and the ability to make decisions that safeguard the safety, security, and the well-being of our citizens and beyond. Your Excellency, I approach this responsibility with the utmost seriousness, fully recognizing the weight of expectations accompanying this role.
In addition, the President made moves to appoint new heads for the Ghana National Fire Service, the Prison Service, and the Ghana Immigration Service. 2 of the 3 appointees, who are women, DDGP Patience Banfo Boni, who will head the Ghana Prison Service, and Daniela Mausi Ntosapon, who will head the National Fire Service. These
All right, so that's a report on the new IGP, Christian Teteyohunu, COP. No more COP now, IGP. Congratulations to him. Of course, Dampare had an interesting tenure, trying to bring up the image of the police service and a few other things. We wait to see how Christian Teteyohunu will also roll out his vision and where he hopes to take the police service. Yes, Franklin Kujo is here, and Richard Ahinagba too. But let me start off with you, Franklin. I know yourself, Imani, together with Professor Eni, Professor Eni had a suit at the Supreme Court seeking interpretation on some provisions of the Constitution. I think 190, 191, and a few others, putting the police service and other security agencies. That put 190 puts the security, police and other security agencies, some security agencies, Ghana Fire Service Extra, under the public services, and that you cannot remove them without just cause. That was the interpretation you were seeking at the Supreme Court. I understand judgment for that is slated for May 7, and in the week, an injunction application was filed. I don't know whether it was served on the Attorney General or not before this decision came. Generally, what were you seeking to do in the court, and how does this decision by the president to remove the service chiefs, how does that make you feel as plaintiffs in the matter?
Oh, well, I think the issues are fairly simple. I think somewhere beginning of last year, some lawyers together with Kofi, with our senior vice president, came to me and said, look, they think there's a lacuna in the law, or probably they wanted some, they wanted to understand something within the Constitution regarding the appointment and, if you like, the removal of certain service commanders. So they explained it. I recall we called the other colleagues from civil society. They came around, and almost all of them agreed that there's some merit actually pursued. Of course, we did realize while we were discussing that it was going to be very, very difficult to break from a tradition where every new president virtually appoints a new service commanders, right? And typically they don't even give reasons as to why they probably remove people and remove the subsisting ones. So I said, well, there's some merit, so why not? Let's go and find out. So we filed it. I think at that point, the lawyers did some research and found out they needed some additional information. The day the case was to be called, I think they went and said, they wanted to withdraw and then amend the case. I recall the Chief Justice saying that, look, people are interested in this matter. You made people, the whole public seems to be interested, and then you can't come and be withdrawing at your will. And then we sort of, that was amended, and then eventually the court said, okay, well, they set a May 7th that date for the ruling. To be frank with you, in fact, you recall that last year, even before we filed the case, we knew, we had all sorts of rumors, right? No, I think after we filed the case, we had so many rumors that the previous president, the previous administration wanted to remove the IGP. Because the IGP, we hear all kinds of rumors, and it's a bit disconcerting. So we said, okay, look, maybe we should actually take the matter to court and then find out. So basically that was it. And when we had the rumors 3 days ago, actually the day before, and not even just recent, you recall a few weeks back, you saw some memes, you saw some artwork going around that the IGP has been replaced and all of that. This was like 2-3 weeks back. So our lawyers thought that, okay, look, they probably want to put on notice that, look, there's a subsisting case. So if anybody is thinking about making some changes, they probably need to respect what exists already. And I suspect when that came to light, a decision that would have come anyway. The Flagstaff House had already decided, well, I understand, that the gentleman was going anyway. So for me, whether it was the injunction that brought the matter to light, at least it served one purpose, that at least it made people realize that there was a substantive case that had been filed last year. I bet many people did not know. And I recall, I think many people within the Flagstaff House had no idea that something of the sort. They thought it was a fresh case that was being started. So those are what happened. And I suspect that the letter infuriated appointing authorities. The injunction, the news about the injunction infuriated them and said, well, look, we'll show you where our lies, and then they did what they had to do. So it was not done in order to derail the former president, and clearly not done to derail this current president. We just wanted to seek interpretation as to what the law says, that you can only remove any of these service leaders by stating reasons. It's clear, as daylight is there, clearly. Either through stated misbehavior or misconduct, or through infirmary of the body and mind. That's all we know.
Great.
So to the extent that we don't have any other information, we can only say, well, this is what the president wants, and at this stage, there's nothing you really can do. So we'll wait for May 7th. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what. But this is not the first time issues like this occur. Is it what worried some of us when we saw the letter, virtually more or less dismissing the gentleman? That was really cool. You know, it had no soul. The letter essentially said, "Oh yeah, it's no longer there." Virtually, you should be saying that, "Oh, maybe this guy may wish you well in your future." Anyway, that did not come. Look, when Nanado, we all criticized. We criticized him for the unfair removal of Domelebu. However crude, however brute, however unwise, if you like, however unfair the process was, they gave an explanation. In fact, they said he was not Ghanaian. Remember, they said they found out that he was Togolese. That's the extent to which they were. And then they also said there's some procurement issues here and there. At least, even in the case of Nanado, who we all said had significant governance deficits. So if you are resetting, you reset with this in mind, and you provide some valuable response to people. Just say, okay, look, this man has done his best, done ABC. I mean, do it professionally. You understand? So, well, that's what it is.
But in the past, of course, I understand the Doma level bit and all of that. But security chiefs, when you are replacing them, do you give a reason? You don't give a reason. You just say they should leave. You just announce their replacement, or Chief, you thank them for their service.
I can understand that that's the convention, but clearly, is it the law? Are you a lawyer? You know what is there? Is it the law? So maybe you wanted to bring attention to the fact that, look, there's so a bit of removing people without giving reasons and cause. We should not do that. And for me, that's what has actually pushed me to tell them, well, head to court. It had nothing to do with whether we love them, what's the Dampare, or I don't know what Dampare, what we don't get anything, because if we get anything for Dampare, please. We're making all kinds of funny statements. I saw lawyers who wanted to etch their name in gold. Don't forget the likes of, and I'm sure you one day you get there. Don't forget the likes of Pewu, who at least are setting his name in some constitutional landmark case. Is that not the case? If these people were able to get this case and the Supreme Court ruled and said, yes, you can do that, I'm sure that they'll be happy and it will grow our democracy. I would think that this should be part of the Constitutional Committee review work. We really need to get to the bottom of this. And some civic-minded people have taken the issue, written actually. I know the likes of Ian Sako has written to the commission, the committee, on this particular issue, and then so people should be interested in it. I think it's a perfect opportunity to discuss our democracy. I don't think we should be distracted. Look, the next day, if we keep on doing this, one day you'll be there before you realize people have taken positions, and you don't want to revisit some of these dangerous things that have happened in the past. As to whether the gentleman was a good man or not, well, look, I have a list before me of the many things I think is done, and I've seen some of them, by the way. I don't belong to the police service, but I can tell you the instances I know that some senior officers actually engaging close to something called armed robbery. And I think these things, look, you have to be careful. So they should look into some of these things and be careful how we treat our service people. If people are bringing transformation, you can take the good out of it, and it is just unfair. I mean, Richard's people, MPP, almost thought this guy was an enemy, right? Richard is there. He knows it. He doesn't want to confess that the things he did to them at some of this, what's it called, the by-elections. And they were surprised. If I remember one of them complaining that, IGP, and then the guy was just interested in doing his work. I know of situations where he said, he told his man, hey, stand down. Nobody is doing any warfare. Just because he wasn't going to, for lack of a better word, be sycophantic. I don't think he wanted to do that. And I think those things got to some people in the APP. They just wanted to yank this man. Now he's become like an orphan after delivering an election that was, well, some people said it was a bit chaotic, but I think he did quite well. If this is how he's rewarded, well, why not? As to your point you made, that because of convention, the president has every right to take him off. That's true. Well, were we not in this country when? Why should I even be surprised? Should we? I mean, we're in this country when the EC chucked us off for 4 good years. Legislature did nothing. The judiciary was putting impediments on our way. They were stealing our docket. Hey, this time we suffer. They stole our dockets to the extent that the very morning we found the docket, the man who found the docket for us was transferred that very morning to Cape Coast. Massa, yeah, bro. So I see all these things and I ask myself, what are we even doing? If the president can, even the judiciary can misbehave like this and become like tax, and then you have the EC, which is also on the frolic of it, so just disenfranchising people by heart. What else can an executive do? Executive can do anything they want except change a man into a woman. Is that what you say? Well, Charlie. So that. It is what it is, and we are happy that. I think Adonoo is not a bad. He's an interesting guy. I mean, I've heard so much good about him, and I think you carry on the message. How old is he again?
I think he'll be retiring soon.
59. Oh, I see. A year is almost 59.
Yeah.
So he has just a year to go. Well, so he'll be paid his emolument, then find another IGP and pay another emolument. Well, maybe that's what I want to do. Or maybe he'll be given an extension, 2-3 years, and then we'll see. Good. Thank you.
All right, great. So, Richard, I mean, you've seen Dampare. We are hoping, of course, Adonoo is no stranger to the police service. He's a senior. In fact, he was deputy to Dampare. I mean, your thoughts on his replacement, Dampare's replacement, the work he's done in the past, and your expectation of Adonoo?
Well, I think, I don't know what I feel about Dampare, but I take the expression of joy and excitement in the police to mean that the verdict on his work is to say that he didn't help much internally, right? So there was some internal challenge you can see from the excitement of his removal. And so that is one thing, but maybe as far as being a civilian and experiencing the output of his work in terms of peace, generally in the country, I'd say, well, we've had peace, and so maybe he contributed to that by leading the police to enforce that and maintain the public order. So on that account, I think that he's come to do his bit. Maybe time for him to take a back seat for the new IGP to do his work. I expect that he will give him full support, because I know about some friction between them, almost where he relegated the now IGP to the background. These are matters that are in the public domain. There is no secret in this town, and so their working relationship was a bit frosty and it wasn't the best. So to the extent they've been swapped, I don't know, but it's like karma is such a thing. So now he's the boss, you know. Not so that he's even the deputy, but he's just now a senior police officer, and wherever he will put him, I think he will continue to serve his country. But I don't think there's much to that. The politics of it, I think that Dampare was looking to be an IGP long term. So he was patronizing in many ways, and I use that advisedly, so that he would maintain a middle ground. And because if we saw immediately after the election the violence that was happening, and we having an IGP, and the silence that came after the election when it was clear the NDC has won, he completely, went into hiding, because he didn't want to do anything. He didn't want to do his job and rub anybody the wrong way. So he took a hike. And for me, that is a dent on his record. The kind of mess that ensued after the election.
How about people who say
even up till now,
transformed the image of the police service?
That was, somebody put it, the COP retired Odro Mensah, I think.
Bright Odro.
Is it Bright Odro, the man who contested for Bekwai?
Okay, no. Yes, I know who you
yeah.
His name
As he made a certain statement, I thought that is instructive. It says that he enhanced he enhanced the image of police on social media, but in terms of practical policing, it was a no-show.
Those of us who drive past the police headquarters, for example, when you're driving past the police and you hear this, or like you see that as your police headquarters, there's some pride you feel. That alone is some confidence we have in the police.
Well, that's
the visibility, the motorbikes and all of that around.
Well, that's good, but that's not the essence of policing. Policing is to ensure peace.
To be visible.
Yeah, you can be visible.
Helps with the peace as well.
You can be visible and not do your job. You saw what happened in Ashanti region during the Council of State election. Chaos. We've not seen that before. Following the election, complete disorder. He was here. He was still the IGP until he was replaced. Nothing happened. You understand? So, and I can tell you, Franklin mentioned about Asinov. I was there during that election. A lot of things were happening. When you complain, he won't take action. Okay? It's not like we wanted him to help us. No. We wanted for him to apply the law in a balanced way, but he didn't.
Now, people think the way the police conducted themselves in that election was really good.
Well, because we chose to go along. But most of the things he was doing were questionable.
I see.
A lot of things were questionable. We decided to be orderly. Otherwise, there would have been chaos.
Against the police?
Yes, because if you are being mistreated, okay, and you know that that's wrong, and somebody says that's what I would do, you don't accept it.
Very well. Interesting. Thanks so much, Richard Anyagba, Franklin Kujo, for this segment of the show. This is how we conclude today's edition of the program. My name is Selorm Adonoo. Thanks so much for doing the viewing and the listening. Catch you same time again next week. Have a good afternoon.
Welcome to the Wonder Space Show with Miss Natalie. In a place you want to